All
We're
right.
live. All right, now we're live. Hello, everyone.
Oh my god.
Nice to see folks on a wonderful Saturday. On a Saturday, at least. I don't know about wonderful. We are here. We have a show for you guys for another episode of The Noise Floor, and we are joined today by one
Mr. Super.
Mr. Super. I was gonna make the joke. God damn it.
Did you see Griffin put it in the thumbnail?
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
But subtly. Subtly.
It's in the background. It's clever. You know, you can't
Yeah.
really tell. But those who know, know. When you know, you know.
Fun fact: when I mentioned that your middle name was, your surname was Sally, someone
Mhm.
DM'd me was like, "I thought that Mark's name, like the MRS, stood for Mr. Super for an
Oh,
embarrassingly
no.
long time." So I think
yeah.
a lot of people thought you were Mr. Super.
This
Or
is
Mrs. Just Mrs.
This is my own demise. That's all right.
Yeah.
I did it to myself.
We
Yeah,
at some
nope.
point may be joined by Griffin. Griffin is indisposed at the moment, so please pardon the black square.
He had a bathroom emergency.
Why would you tell people that? That's just rude.
We're all about the truth here.
Are we?
Yes. Transparency. Other than having the camera off. Yeah, so we're gonna talk about some topics. We're gonna talk about Griffin's here. Great. Yeah, well,
Welcome
joined
back.
by Blaine and one listener. So how is everybody doing, first and foremost?
Not bad.
Doing
Great.
well?
I think I'm getting sick.
Oh,
That's
no.
too bad. Yeah.
I'm gonna infect everybody at Can Jam.
Excellent. I mean,
Well,
so like that always
yeah.
happens, right? Can Jam is a vector of disease. Everyone gets sick afterwards, and it's definitely Blaine's fault.
Please
storing
don't.
up
Please
all the
recover
cake.
before then.
Yeah. By the
Are
way,
you going to be in New York?
Yeah.
Nice.
got to go to Chicken Jazz. Or wherever. By the way, the Can Jam seminar list just dropped. For folks who are curious what seminars are going to be there, Blaine is giving
who
two.
the fuck goes to a Can Jam seminar though?
We
Weirdos.
do. We go.
We
Exactly.
definitely do.
fucking
You
Exactly.
definitely do.
Losers
there
go
is-
to Can Jam seminars.
There are, and you're going to be speaking to all of them. So Blaine has two seminars. One of them is a repeat of the Dark Ages one for folks in New York who didn't get a chance to go to the SoCal or Dallas ones. But then also another one, which I don't know about yet, which is the basically what is wrong with people's interpretation of frequency response. So
Okay.
I assume this is making the horse glue into dust and burying it. Is that the
large purpose of what almost everyone gets wrong about frequency response is essentially to be the other side of this is the Dark Ages. This is the Dark Ages is these are all the problems, and whatever almost everyone gets wrong is that doesn't mean that you idiots can just disregard it.
Yeah, fair. Okay, that's good. Providing, I hear you.
Will you record it?
Yes, that's one of the reasons that I
Hopefully.
have the DJI Osmo thing. So I will, even if these guys don't record it, I will record it.
You can truck vlog it. You should do this seminar with your Oakleys.
I'm not actually going to buy Oakleys.
I'll bring mine. You can use mine.
Yeah.
I'm honestly tempted. I am thinking about getting, just to really put my own style on a classic, like a black and white Hawaiian shirt. Really go for that dark
that's
tile
good.
vibe.
Dark
Dark
tile.
tile.
Nice.
Punished tile.
Exactly.
I love it. We should all do that. It's a great option.
Yeah, get headphones.com Hawaiian shirts. They'll definitely want to
should.
spend money on that.
We should. Oh man,
We unironically
Terrible
should.
idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea. What are you talking about?
Our logo would actually make for a great Hawaiian
It would
shirt.
look way.
Our logo
It
and
does
brand
have that.
colors are perfect for a Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah.
God, I hate
As
that.
far as the other topics that we have here, we're obviously going to chat with Mark about his recent myth busting video, but also you did a really good ranking list for the things that matter, and we might give our own sort of ranking and see if we all sort of agree or disagree. I think I'm mostly there with you, and
I was
maybe
in
just
chat
one or two
complaining
things.
at him.
Oh, were you? Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
So then we have something to talk about. And also, we need to throw shade. We have some drama briefly. We need to throw some shade. So we'll do that.
Yeah, we're gonna do our
first.
traditional 5-minute hate.
Yeah, 5 minutes of hate. So, but first, somebody has read a
5
book.
minutes. Wow.
It's from, is that Orwell? That's got to be Orwell,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, it's a
that's
2
what
minute
I'm
tape.
for.
It's 2 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're up in it.
Before we do that, let us give a quick shout out to this channel sponsor, headphones.com. Blaine, would you like to do the honors?
Yeah. So, as always, we are brought to you by Headphones.com, your number one place to learn about and buy audio equipment, headphones, speakers, DACs, amps, cables, and probably things that I'm forgetting. Available with 365-day return policies for pretty much everything. If it's not returnable under that terms, you will see a final sale tag, but everything else you can, so that you can buy with confidence knowing that you will get something that you'll be happy with. People who are in Canada, who are not yet members of the United States, can also buy from headphones.ca for a limited selection, which ships from Canada. We, in addition to our storefront, have obviously this channel, The Headphone Show. The audio files are written content, which is hosted on headphones.com/the audio files, I believe. Our communities on discord.gg/headphones and also forum.headphones.com. And we'd encourage you guys to participate in all of those places.
Lovely. And also, this is where we mine the community for topics for this stream. So if you'd like yours to be heard or your topic to be read, definitely contribute. And I think one of them comes from there today, if I'm not mistaken. There were some good ones.
One of them
I can
comes
attest that
directly
it
from
works.
Aaron.
I can attest that it works. I've left comments on the forum, and
there you go.
They have showed up as topics, so it works. Do it, people.
There you go.
Yeah. So the one that we took from the forum is actually one that we discussed a little bit last time, but didn't get a full squeezing of that fruit to get all the delicious juice. So
wow.
we're going to touch on that one again, but that'll be towards the end.
I did see another one there that I thought was quite good. Oh, the purpose of a review, maybe from Brandon. Anyway, the point is,
should add that one. I'll add that one.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah.
What is the purpose of a review?
It's just
what is love, baby? Don't hurt me.
I had this. We're not going to get into philosophy here. Maybe we'll get into philosophy in stage later.
That's my favorite part.
Why would you say that? Why do you want to hurt me?
Because I listen to podcasts.
Oh, true. Yeah. How dare you be an intellectually curious man?
Yeah, how dare you? Anyways, without further ado, let's get into topic number 1, shall we? Should we do Mark's myth busting video first, or do you want to throw shade first?
I would say let's get into Mark's stuff first.
Okay.
All right.
But
so you did a myth busting video.
Yeah.
Was there? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No.
Wait. Who's going ahead?
You.
Okay, I'll go ahead.
I'll go. Yeah, please.
I don't know what kind of setup you guys are looking for this, but this is actually something I've been kind of meaning to do for a while. Is content that's not just review content, but when there's so many things to review, it's kind of hard to prioritize that stuff and always gets in the back burner. But have a good reason to spend some time on it now. And so, yeah, put together a video of just 13 common audiophile myths. I guess another reason why it's kind of elevated in importance for me recently is just probably because not unrelated to having reviewed certain high-profile headphones recently. Just getting more, I don't know what you want to say, collisions or interactions with the head-fi world. And not that I haven't been interested in following head-fi for a while, but getting more of those people showing up in comments and leaving what feel like comments that just they just have a different understanding of audio than I do. And so I kind of want to just lay my cards out on the table. It's like, these are all the things that people talk about in hi-fi that I feel like they don't register for me. And so I called it myth busting, but if you want to get down to it, I'm probably going to be a lot more conciliatory and let people have their own opinions about things. But yeah, for me, it was.
I hoped for better in that respect. I wanted to see you go for blood.
So I'm curious if you got. I mean, we would have expected it, but did you get any backlash from the folks who sort of were the amp DAC pilled side of things, or technicalities pilled, or I don't know what we want to say, no EQ gang?
Sure. I mean, I guess maybe I can run through real quick just the types of myths that I was covering to give people context, and I can answer that. But
for folks who haven't seen it, watch the video. It's on Mark's channel. Link to the description.
Yeah. But yeah, the myth: cables improve sound quality, or balanced cables sound better. DACs and amps have a big impact on sound quality as a myth. Audiophiles only like neutral. Maybe a less controversial one, but also addressing as the artist intended is kind of like this goal that a lot of people seem to think is the point of audiophilia. The myth that EQ can ruin your sound quality. The myth that digital audio needs to be bit perfect. That one's not from Head5 so much. I just get a lot of comments from, because I review DAPs and people ask me, is this bit perfect? I'm like, I don't care. Myths about lossy compression, high-res audio, burn-in, of course. More expensive equals sounds better. A handful of various driver memes, things that people kind of just repeat on the internet. And then, probably my spiciest one was just about matching headphones to music genres, which is, another common noob question. It's like, hey, I like this genre. Which headphones should I get? I'm like, I understand why you're asking. Anyway, so that's kind of like the breadth of the questions I was asking. And I guess your question was about, did I get pushback? Not as much as I expected initially. I put it out there and I expected to get, a bunch of people disagreeing with things because I'm kind of stepping on the toes of a bunch of, I don't want to say sacred cows, but just things that people build a lot of their hobby identity around, hearing the difference between DACs and amps. I haven't had that experience personally. So that's what I said. And, I expected people to say, hey, you're deaf. You're not resolving enough gear. But initially, the feedback was pretty positive, and most people agreed. And like, all right, thank you. Someone is saying this stuff, because I think there are a lot of people that have these same experiences, but they are surrounded. They live in the milieu of the audiophile community, where it's like you feel like, am I deaf? Like, do I not know how to listen? Are these people like higher skill level than me? Like, what's going on?
Do you feel there's like a difficulty in reaching that segment? Like, obviously I think the videos like the ones that you did are extremely helpful for people who are sort of not entrenched, right? Like they're undecided, or they're like, coming at it and trying to learn and understand. But there's definitely that side of the community that is just, your video is going to fall on deaf ears. Essentially, it's going to be, I'm not saying that, like, no, I'm not saying deaf ears in that sense, but like they're just not going to want to engage with that.
Right. Let's note that formally the stance of the headphones.com website and also the Headphone Show is that anyone who disagrees with us is deaf.
That's not actually. Why do you have to frame it exactly the way you shouldn't frame it?
Blaine is both the most company man and the least company man.
You got to know what the company wants to do, what the company doesn't want.
There you go.
He's just here to shit disturb. Like, he's just here to be
a brand
controversial.
But no, I guess, Andrew, to respond to your question, I think partly because I do mostly IM stuff. I think the IM market, this is my kind of read on what's going on, it skews a little bit younger and skews a little bit less steeped in those memes. Like, not that it doesn't exist still, but I think they're a little bit less affected by it. And I think that's why when I published my video initially, the response was pretty positive. And it wasn't until it leaked out into Headphone and Reddit that I got some more pushback.
Right. Well, one of the things with that sort of also, especially to do with the IM side of things, I have to believe that that at least a certain segment of the folks who are on the cables make a difference side of things have experienced situations where they use like an Empire Ears IEM, for example, and then some cable that was like actually, there was an impedance relationship or something like that, where there was an actual change, measurable change, and then this made them cable pilled because they didn't understand fully the reasons why. And what you would be saying is that most of the time this isn't something you'd be saying, the sane, fairly, the reasonable take here, that like isn't something to worry about, but they'll see that as a rejection of their experience. You know what I mean? Like they'll see that,
right. And, like in my last video, I it was kind of like a companion video to the myth busting, but it was like ranking things in terms of what makes a difference. And I put amps pretty low, and I got quite a bit of feedback talking about, tube amps. It's like, you're not thinking about tube amps. And it's like, there is a lot of truth actually there. But what I did instead was I kind of like separated amps from output impedance.
Yeah.
Not that they are necessarily separated when you're buying the products, but it's like the output impedance is the variable that's changing your sound much more so than a different, like, just whatever other memes people are putting into, they think is affecting their amp.
Yeah. That's
But have
actually a
you
major
considered
contributor.
that
Sorry, go
this
ahead,
amp
Blaine.
is Class A, and thus it
Mhm.
sounds better because it has A, and A is an earlier letter than B? You wouldn't want to
Yeah.
get a B on your test if you could get an A.
Well, Class A is very energy inefficient. It gets things very hot, and
Hot
then
is hot.
Class AB is a solution to that. But because it's not as hot, like it can't sound as good, right? There must be some sort of
True.
trade-off there.
I'm making a
Yeah.
new
And
amp
I'm being
class.
facetious, by the way. And I know
I'm
you
making a
guys
new
know,
amp
but
class for the weebs. It's going to be Class S because in the
okay.
US we go, A, B, C. But the weebs, they got their own
Yeah.
system. They got A, C is lower than B is lower than A, but then they got S. So
Yeah.
someone's got to make a Class S amp to sell to the weebs.
Makes
Good
sense.
idea. That's a good idea.
And instead of going with classes, you got to go with tiers. But no, actually, to get to your ranking list there as well, that was one area where I think that was like the only area where I would have ranked things a bit differently, because I would have put amps generally in a slightly higher tier, only for that reason. Like, that if somebody really cares about tube amps, for example, that would be a fun thing for them to, it is a thing that will actually genuinely make a difference if you have a high output impedance and you're running headphones that have some sort of nonlinear impedance curve, or
Right.
like the harmonic distortion profile for certain tube amps. You would actually get audible differences there, and in that sense, it's like people who are wanting to chase that would have a reason to. I'm not saying that's necessarily something to chase, but it would make a difference.
Sure. Yeah. And we had conversation about it on my Discord server also after I had recorded that, where we talked about, even like noise floor being actually a pretty noticeable, significant difference between amps, depending on what you're using.
Yeah.
Blaine said that that's an IEM problem, not a headphone problem, which is, I think, probably mostly true. I
True
don't
in
know.
most cases. Yeah.
So to be clear, you can design an amp badly enough that you'll hear noise on it, comma. Why are we buying badly designed stuff in the modern day? Like, someone there, I think it was Adrian, said that he had like $1,000 amp and could hear the noise floor on sensitive headphones.
Vioelectric.
Yeah, and that's just like, that's an embarrassment.
Which one?
I don't know. A Vioelectric.
Oh.
I don't know the amp world.
Yeah, I don't know.
They shouldn't. That sounds bad. That's not a good thing.
No, it's funny actually on the Vioelectric topic, I guess. At CanJam, I actually had an experience. This last CanJam in SoCal, I had an experience where an amp made a noticeable difference on a headphone. There was, I think, a new Fostex something. I listened to it on one amp. I was like, my buddy was like, "Hey, check this out." And I listened to it. I was like, "Why did you want me to listen to this thing? This headphone is bright as hell. It's awful." And then they put it on the other amp, and it sounded fine. So I had no idea what was going on, but
something output impedance,
probably something related to that. Again, this is I kind of hand wave the amp world a little bit and saying that there is kind of like this. I described esoteric sub hobby of amps where I don't follow this stuff, so I don't know what people are into. But for me, I just want an amp to be kind of a neutral, clean source, and anything that it's doing to a headphone beyond that, that seems like an accident to me. That I don't want that.
Well, it's also something where if you wanted to be specific about the sound, you may as well just EQ. Like, if you wanted to do something to your headphones, you have better control with EQ, so you may as well just do that. I'm curious what you think about, for example, what I believe to be Cameron's position on this topic, which is, you can have two amplifiers that sound different from one another purely because of their harmonic distortion profile, and they would be very slightly different. Even I'm talking about solid state here, and they would also be fairly low in terms of, like, we're talking about minus like 70. Like, I don't know,
right?
That could have some sort of effect. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I guess this is kind of where the tier ranking was kind of my way of making sense of that. It's like, I'm in my first video, my myth video, I say, do DACs and amps have a big impact? And I just kind of very roughly say, no, I don't think so. But yeah, you can start, getting into the details. And you're like, oh no, I can actually measure a difference. I can show you the difference that it's making. And I don't disbelieve that some people can hear that stuff. So with the tier chart, I basically wanted to say, sure, maybe this makes a difference, but just FYI, in my opinion, this is like 3 tiers below, swapping your headphone in terms of even that is probably underselling the gap in terms of how much difference you're making. But it's just like, for some people, that is, I guess, what they're interested in the hobby is really fine tuning. Just my other analogy was like, fine tuning your brand of salt in your recipe. It's like, okay. Like, I feel like all the salts taste like it's not going to change your recipe that much. But
no,
if
it's
you're
like
it will change the
about your
likelihood
cutlery.
of you getting goiters, though.
Oh, really? Oh, because of the iodine?
Yeah, because non-iodized salts are on the rise. Goiters are happening again.
Oh, interesting.
Iodize your salt, people. Don't be a goiter boy.
No, I was saying it's like choosing your type of cutlery to suit the meal. Is it really going to change the flavor? Maybe.
Right.
Unlikely.
Right. But like if you love your headphone and you don't want to change anything about your headphone, but you still want to tweak your setup, it's like, okay, I guess. But maybe this is also, I do also have to be honest, like part of my preferences in terms of wanting neutral sources that don't tweak the headphone might be just because of my position in the hobby as I'm reviewing headphones, I'm reviewing IEMs, and like I don't want my review of an IEM to be dependent on some variable in the source that I'm not accounting for that might be affecting it different. So for me, it's like that's just a bad effect. I don't want that, but I can understand why someone might have a different opinion.
My concern is always with people doing the sunk cost fallacy bit, or the what, like they want to maximize what they get out of the headphones that they bought. So then they spend just as much money on an amplifier and a DAC. And it's like, you could have spent that on just better headphones or different headphones, right? Like, or, like an Element 4 and then done EQ. I don't know. Like you could have done so many, or saved it, invested it.
Yeah, you could have spent it on a nice matcha latte while you sat down and took 20 minutes learning how to EQ.
In Canada, that genuinely is a cheeseburger.
$300?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, like, I will also add to this too, is like, as much as I'm saying, I don't think DACs and amps make a big difference in terms of sound, and I'm ranking them pretty low on my tier chart. I'm not necessarily saying like, don't spend money on them. I feel like, when I first got into the hobby, what attracted me to a DAC and amp was like just the aesthetic of putting this cool looking thing on my desktop. I wanted something that glowed and got hot. Like that just seemed like a cool aesthetic to me.
I still want that.
Yeah, I still think that's kind of cool, and like I don't know, I think that's fine. And if you have like, I don't want something that's just making heat for no reason. Like I have a space heater. I don't put that on my desktop. But if like I can somehow rationalize that it's contributing to my enjoyment of the sound, it's like it is a cool thing. I get that. Mostly my point was just though, like if you don't hear a difference between it, like don't feel bad, because I also don't hear a difference. And if you're trying to make the biggest difference in terms of sound quality, probably don't spend your time there.
I've also heard a difference that has vanished when I've properly level matched. That's one that I really want to emphasize.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a funny thing too, is like, so as far as like the negative feedback, I got a lot of it on HeadPhi. And then once the algorithm found a different corner of the internet, but a lot of the comments will start with like, oh, this guy must be deaf. And the truth is like kind of what you just said, Blaine. It's like, no, I actually have heard exactly what you're talking about. I've heard this stuff before. I just then subjected myself to a blind listening environment. I'm like, oh, it went away. Whoa, that's weird.
Turns out volume is a hell of a drug.
I mean, volume and also just like expectation bias, right?
It's exactly. Like, once you have the ability to hear the difference, like, and which a small volume like level match difference causes, you can attribute all kinds of things. It's the same thing as if you have a perfect level match, but you can see the two objects, right? Like you can have an expectation of, oh, this is going to sound this way, this is going to sound this way. And sometimes they're not things you would even articulate, but it's hard to, I mean, it's not just hard. We literally cannot stop our brains from making those kinds of interpolations. It's core to how our audio system works. Like everything we hear is a hallucination, and it's not based solely on what goes into our ears.
It's almost like there's a phenomenal realm and a noumenal realm.
Ooh, one might argue such.
The other part of this that I haven't yet gotten into is that I have to admit, this is also true for headphones and IEMs that I'm listening to, right? It's like how this thing looks, how it feels is like playing a part in how much I like this thing. And I'm, people are coming at me saying, oh, you can't hear the difference. I'm like, and my response is, try and blind A/B test. You might be surprised. The truth is with IEMs and headphones, that might also be the case, right? If I subjected myself to a blind A/B test between I feel like an HD600, I just know so well that easy.
You would
but
know
maybe
the sound.
Yeah. Maybe not.
It is crazy how like people don't realize what blind listening actually does, and like it is difficult if you're saying like actually volume match blind listening, because you also have all the other factors like how the headphone fits and how open it is and all those other things.
And to be clear, those factors should affect your purchase, right?
Yeah,
there's a reason to buy a headphone because it feels good, and honestly because it looks good to you. Like you are wearing these.
Yeah,
we don't all want to look like Andrew. No offense, Andrew.
He's got the coolest looking headphones right now, although they could use some marbling.
I just don't want them to be. I don't want them to be blue.
Well, then why are they blue?
Easier to see the potential issues. Also, it's just what I had. So
I'll have something. I don't want these to be blue. Continues to make them blue.
I'm gonna see if I can have something better for CanJam. We'll see. But no, I was gonna say like even situations where you are doing EQ, right? We've talked about this before, but getting level matching for EQ on versus EQ off is extremely difficult because your EQ, depending on what you've done, can change the overall SPL of what you're listening to.
Right.
So it's difficult to say like this is a fair comparison, I think that's actually responsible for why people do the whole like EQ ruins your technicalities bit. Or has
because it makes things quieter.
Well, certainly if you're adding the pregame, but also potentially they're not getting a level match comparison, even if they're applying it or doing it correctly.
Yeah, it's one of the downsides of the piece GUI that people recommend all the time, is that it's basically impossible to level match the pre-EQ and post-EQ'd sound.
No, clipping. It's not hard. You just need to reduce your digital volume in your player.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I mean, yes. Although I will point out that actually isn't right.
It's not still level matching. You still need to pink noise, SPL, calibrate, or whatever. Find some way of actually getting them to
level
match.
Level matching is a thing all of its own that needs
the pregame is not the problem.
Evaluated.
Pregame and piece is not the problem. Is what I'm saying.
I mean, really, the ideal would be swapping between two presets, but that's I mean, again,
where you have it calibrated for whatever.
Yeah.
Yes. I get what you're saying.
It's something they might add to the Aulio thing or whatever it's called.
Reluctant engineer, this is not an HD600 successor.
What's not? Your headphone?
This is just a.
Oh yeah, no, it's not.
It's not.
No, it's the counterpoint to the Omega. It's the Andrew F Alpha. Andrew.
Stop doing this.
The Sigma?
Stop.
The Sigma. No, the Sigma will be Blaine's.
Yeah. So, but I can't call it the Alpha because that already exists, doesn't it?
Probably.
Oh, was that a Dan thing?
I think it was. I think he called it the Alpha.
Or was it Alpha Dog?
Yeah.
He called it the Alpha Dog.
Yeah. Also, I'm not.
Which was really cringe.
For things like
Let's just be clear. That was really. Wait, did you say Latin
or Greek lettering? Whatever. Yeah. I'm not a fan of that stuff personally.
Not a Sigma male.
No, I will say DMS should have called it the Omega, like OHM. He should have done that.
That's cringe. That's really cringe.
Yeah, that's why he should have done it.
Why would you say that?
Because it's on brand.
No, it's not. DMS is not cringe.
He has a shirt that says DMS is cringe on it. He wore it.
Does he really? That's such a good
shirt. He does. It's awesome.
Oh wait, is that the one that's like a YouTube comment?
It's a YouTube comment. Yeah, someone did.
Yeah.
DMS is big on the embrace the cringe vibe.
He is, exactly.
Respect.
And I respect that about it.
I do too. Yeah, it's some of the wisest words that he could have, or wisest advice that he could have given me in this whole YouTube endeavor, because I'm not naturally YouTube inclined. I don't know.
People in chat want it to be called the Ligma.
The Ligma. I'm not going to talk about this all that much until it's actually ready, which is a long ways away. Where are we in terms of our topics here, Griffin?
I mean, we kind of like touched on the tier list already, so if you guys want to move on, we can.
Do we want to? Okay, should we do our 5 minutes of hate here?
We can do that, yeah.
For people who are not in the loop of what we're hating on, the website Headphone, which I keep thinking does AI articles, but I keep plugging them into detectors and they keep saying they're not AI, released an article called "Why the Obsession with Measurements is Leading to Worse Sounding Gear." This really probably shouldn't get any attention, but it got a little bit of attention, partially because Sean Olive tweeted about it to make fun of it.
I had many people pinging me with this article, asking my opinion of it.
I will say it is an SEO goldmine, and it is a clickbaity boy, and we are doing it all kinds of favors by talking about it. But
well, only for the next 5 seconds until we talk about our opinions of it.
I mean, it also, part of the reason that we're involving it is because it involved Mr. Super here.
Yes, it did.
He features.
Oh yeah, that was. Thank you for sharing that link with me, by the way, Blaine. Like last night, I didn't know that this article existed until
they've also done. They've also, their whole thing is to try and just like be the clickbait sort of like thing about whatever is topical, and they have been topical. Like, to their credit, like they covered your video with the ZMF drama thing.
Yeah, that one I also didn't know until I saw that article that you sent me last night, Blaine.
Yeah. There are two core problems with this. One is that it is written very, very poorly, just at a basic writing level. The other is that it asserts a thesis and then provides functionally no evidence for it, which is leading to worse sounding gear.
It's not even. It's just completely unrelated.
Yeah, it's not completely. They have one and exactly one reference point for how it can make things sound worse.
Was it in the amps and DAX world, which doesn't matter?
Yeah, it's intersample. Well, okay, no, intersample overs can matter because intersample clipping does happen. Like, that's actually something that DAC manufacturers should do better on. Like, DAC should in general have probably even 6 dB of headroom. But that's the single example that they have for this makes things potentially sound worse. And there is literally, for one thing, there's not actually much evidence that people actually hear intersample overs that much. Like, it's something we theoretically should be able to hear, but it's something that we'll only hear if you have all your digital volumes absolutely max, which most users don't. It's a very niche case. So they basically just assume into existence, this is making things worse.
Reluctant Engineer calls it Strawman, the article. It's just a good
I mean,
encapsulation.
Honestly, it feels like they're like scraping from places like us who will be like, here's a caveat about measurements. And then trying to farm that into measurements are making this whole hobby worse, which is stupid.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest.
Nirvana fallacy, the article.
It definitely covers some measurement topics that I'm not well versed in, right? So for me to read too much into it and say they get it wrong, but it also, I don't know, you ever watch like a movie or a TV show that, you know, that happens to cover a topic you know a lot about, and you're like, oh, wow, they just make stuff up. That's kind of what it reads like. It's like I've looked something up on the internet and I've regurgitated it in a way that's kind of transformed it, and it's no longer really quite accurate, but it sounds accurate enough to somebody who doesn't know the thing. That's what it reads like to me.
Now, here's a question I have for you guys on it. Do you think that the sole intention of this article was just for clicks? Or do you think that it was, in terms of framing it that way, or do you think there was, I saw this comment on Reddit that the impetus or the motivation behind this article was more couched in propping up kind of the more old school sides of audiophilia, you know, the darker sides of the, you know.
I have an interjection. I don't believe that you should be allowed to use the word couched until you own a couch.
Okay. Anyways,
can't it be both?
It can be both. It certainly can be both. I'm just curious, like,
I mean, I think
how much of this second bit is influential here, I guess, is the question.
Well, I mean, I guess maybe to Griffin's point, it's like I think there's an audience for this. Like, there's clicks to view it, not just necessarily outrage clicks, but I think there's an audience for it because there is a large part of the hobby that sees what we're doing with measurements and sees this as like just misguided and going the wrong direction with the hobby. So I think there is kind of like this undercurrent, and I wouldn't doubt that maybe the author, or I don't follow Headphone, so I apologize if I'm not super familiar with them, but maybe that's just kind of like the editorial vibe of them, is like this measurement stuff is interesting, like tangentially, but like they don't maybe like it taking over the hobby.
Yeah.
I think Headphone, when you look at the broad swath of their measurement-centric articles, is trying to get, and I mean, we try to do this as well, right? They're trying to get authority as a place that has some understanding of the science, because they have references to stuff like Hammershoy and Muller. They have stuff that is cursorily related to a lot of the things that we discuss. It just feels like every month or two, they're just like, hey, we should do an article that ups our credibility. And then they spend maybe one day Googling on the subject, having already had the title decided. And then they put whatever they can together. Like, it just feels like like they start from the conclusion they want, e.g., one headphone target response doesn't fit all, headphone measurements are leading us the wrong way, whatever it is. And then they just sort of gather some data and try to sort of bully it into the shape of their conclusion. And it's not always wrong data, it's not always wrong information, but it's just like, it feels soulless. Like, I can see why people find it to be AI-ish. It reads like someone prompted an AI to give them a justification of a position. But again, I keep putting their articles into AI detectors, and they keep saying they're not AI.
You said that last night, and I said something like it reads worse than an AI. But by that I meant, like, I think if it was AI, like I feel like it would be more accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it is also maybe worth us like taking maybe not the exact content literally seriously, but like the idea generally behind it. Like that there are people out there that probably are, I guess you guys talk about it all the time. It's like people that take the measurements too literally, and maybe because of that they are ruining the hobby.
Well, and also there are situations where measurements are genuinely making it worse. Like there's this site called Squig.link, which is just absolutely terrible for.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically ruined IEMs. Before Squig.link, IEMs were good, but now I have to say IEMs are bad.
Yeah, you can go back and review the average IEM 5 years ago. So
someone just clipped Blaine saying IEMs were good.
Well, somebody before in the chat was like, finally we have
just IEMs were good. That enough is evidence.
But somebody was saying finally we have somebody to stop the IEM bully.
Am I really a bully?
I assume meaning Blaine. But no, actually,
you prevent them from talking about IEM. So yeah,
there was
that's a service.
I will say, I'm not sure where this was posted, but where did the graph that Taryn or somebody posted this? There's a graph from, I think it was on Squig.link, from Passion for Sounds thing, and it's for the final audio. Oh, you posted that.
Listen, that's next stream's 5-minute hate.
I don't
understand.
Can't combine
what
the hell. Why is I don't understand how this is allowed on anyway? Does it? What is this?
What do you mean allowed? It's not like
it's
not like Mark personally approves every upload.
Is it in ears? It must be in ears.
It has to be in ears.
It's like
it has that big peak around 4 kilohertz. That's in ears.
Okay.
Yeah. So for reference, what we're talking about is Passion for Sound did a video recently talking about the Final Audio D8000 Pro.
Yeah.
And he
Headphone.
posted a
Can't see
measurement
any of this.
of it.
Chat says, yeah, we have a bad habit of talking about images and not showing them.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I mean, I could. The
I
thing
just
is,
don't. It's not.
I don't have a great computer, so if
Yeah.
I try to pull up the image, it might screw things up.
We'll work on that.
This is just a moment to interject for our sponsor. See how poor we are. If you guys bought more things on headphones.com, we could afford a computer for Griffin.
We could put more hamsters in the hamster wheel.
Anyway, it was a measurement comparing the D8000 Pro to the Headphone 2 GT, but it was measured on an ears rig with a target of
the passion
unknown
for
provenance.
Okay.
Well, no, we know it's provenance. It's the passion for sound target. And in fact, if you look closely at it, I'm fairly sure that we can see that it's linearly interpolating between about 9 points that he just sort of plonked down.
I assume it's just a Hi-Fi Man headphone that like he measured on his rig and then did what you said, like just
the usual reviewer target thing.
For the record, that's basically how my target's made.
Yeah, that's a long-standing complaint.
Yeah, so we are throwing shade, but Mr. Super is not, just to be clear.
Exactly. Sounds based to me.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Anyway, should we move on to the next topic here?
Sure. So I think the one that we have outlined, because I did just add it to the list, does come from our forum.
We have a bimodality where either we take 2 hours on a topic or we skip through 3 in 30 minutes.
I'm trying to get things. We're trying to make these streams a bit more accessible, so I'm trying to pack.
It is what it is.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with it.
Okay. Yeah, I do think this is a good question that I'm glad.
I can just say we can conclude
this one.
that Headphonesty article was not a good article. All right.
Can we go further and
now
say
we can move on?
I wouldn't recommend reading Headphonesty to anybody, honestly.
Yeah, I think I would endorse that recommendation against reading any of that content.
Okay.
So this one is, hold on one second. In your eyes, this is from Brandon on our forum. In your eyes, what is a review? What is the purpose of a review, and what is it trying to accomplish? I find a lot of the discourse and drama surrounding reviews and reviewers, be it for any hobby, is because people often have different expectations of what a review is and what it should be. Furthermore, why do you each review products? Is it for personal enjoyment? What are you trying to accomplish with your reviews? So bring it back, because there are a lot of questions there. The first two
of you get paid to review products, so I think that's part of it.
Well, but actually there is more to
the purpose of a review.
Yeah, there is more to the second bit, which I'm happy to get into as well. But yeah, who wants to go first on the purpose of a review? I have to think about this.
I mean, I can go first. The only non-reviewer can talk.
Please, yeah, go for it.
From my point of view, as someone who is completely unbiased, because I'm not a reviewer, the purpose of a review as a consumer is to inform a purchase, basically, right? Like, it's either I am going to consider buying this product or I'm considering buying one of its competitors. I would like to know what this opportunity space I am buying into looks like. So functionally, a review's purpose for me, at least for a generic review, a review of a product that I'm not following that reviewer, is basically I want to know whether I should spend my money on X, Y, Z, or none of the above. Now, once you get into a hobby, it takes on this sort of perverse thing where it's also entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're just like, I wonder what new piece of shit has come out recently. Let's see a review of it.
So, and in the spirit of that, I have a slightly adjacent take to this, because for me, I strongly do not give a shit whether or not somebody buys a thing at all. Like, I just don't care. Like, based on anything that I've said, or if they buy something that I've said is bad, it means literally nothing to me. And I'm not, when I'm reviewing a product, when I'm evaluating something, I don't have it in my mind. Like I'm not going to feel better about it if somebody buys it, in the sense that it validates whether, if I liked something, right? Or doesn't buy it if I didn't like it. For me, the idea of them purchasing it is not in my head at all. Because for me, what's actually interesting, and this gets a little bit to the second part of this question, is what is the interesting thing that this, whatever it is, is doing. What is it about this thing that is actually interesting that somebody might find genuinely useful in their life, enjoy about their life, or whatever? And or is it changing the market in some way? Does it mean anything? Is there any consequence to this thing? And in many cases the answer is no. Which is also why my typical disposition for a lot of these products is yeah, I would say that has changed a little bit over time, right? But it kind of goes back to a topic we were talking about, I think, before, which is that for a lot of these things, it's not just that they might not be competitive at a given. They might be good products, but they might not be competitive at their asking price, right? And so it becomes difficult to say this is an amazing thing if it doesn't actually shake things up, if that makes sense.
Okay. What about you, Mark?
I watch reviews so that I can get purchase validation.
God bless. I'm glad someone said it before I had to.
Someone in chat did say, "Is that what reviews are?" I thought they were for post-purchase justification, and I immediately was like, "Well, fuck, he's right."
Yeah. I say that facetiously, and I think we all register it because we see that a lot in like the comments and the feedback to the stuff that we write.
Okay, to be clear,
I think they don't attack him when he's facetious, but when I'm facetious, they're like, "Blaine, don't be that way."
No, but I do also want to make it
he's
clear.
Nice.
Have none of us in this square of people done this before? I've absolutely used reviews for post-purchase validation before. We are not 100%. Better than our audience.
So I will say though, like, not since becoming a reviewer, because I realized because you become self-conscious about it. Okay.
I mean, Project Farm, inject that intravenously into my veins for my post-purchase validation.
It's like a 50-50 for me because I very regularly replace stuff that I have if I don't think that it's up to
you
stuff.
just do more research up front. You just watch all those videos beforehand.
Well, but new videos come out, new comparisons come out, new tools come out. So no, I like when I watch car reviews, I'm partially thinking, how did my decision stack up? And I'm also thinking, my lease is going to be up at some point. What's my next car going to be?
Right.
Or, when I watch a review of, a Sawzall, I'm thinking, I have a Sawzall, but is there a better one? If this one breaks, what do I guess?
Also, another reason is if you didn't know something about the thing that you bought, and it might give you more information about it and how you could use it, right?
I have only very seldom encountered this.
Well, I recently got a new phone, and so part of my video trajectory has been, okay, what are the other things that I didn't know about this that this could do, right? Because I didn't buy it for those things.
A lot of features.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I brought up that rationale because like I am guilty of it as of this morning. Like I mentioned, I think on the last chat that I recently bought another Miata, and so I'm just watching videos of people comparing my Miata versus the newer one, and I love the ones where they're like, "Oh, the older one that I got is better."
Got to have the swoopy thing on the back.
That's a good one.
I mean, I think that in general we do look. I mean, like everyone wants to know that they didn't fuck up, right? Like it sucks to think you fucked up. But I do think, at least for myself, I do also have a sense of if I messed up, I'm going to fix it. It's not just I'm going to turn away from anything that says you made the wrong call. I'm going to take that under advisement.
Sure. Although that becomes a bit weird when, say, you buy a headphone, you like the headphone, then you watch a review of somebody saying this is trash. And then you're like, well, but would I fix it based on what they're indexing for? If I like it, that doesn't make sense.
Well, no, I mean, the thing is, I don't take reviews and say whatever they said is best is best. I evaluate
because you also know that what most people are saying is not.
It's not even just that. Like, think about Project Farm for a second, right? Like he does rankings and stuff, but his rankings are based on his tests. But only some of those tests may be pertinent to you.
Oh, totally,
yeah. So if you're looking at that and you say, this one may be more expensive and it doesn't have, the brake torque of whatever this thing is lower, but it's just like, it has a much more ergonomic grip and it fits better with fasteners or whatever, because God knows what the hell he's going to be testing. Then it might be, hey, that's the perfect one for me.
Well, it's like, somebody saying whatever Toyota I was looking at the time. I don't think it was it wasn't the one that I bought, but they were saying, this isn't a very good car because effectively it's not a sports car. And in my head, I'm like, I don't want it to be a sports car. I don't care.
There is something to be said for a little bit of go when you put your foot down.
Oh, sure, for sure. But like, I don't need it to be turbocharged, for example.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't like turbos in general.
Yeah.
That's something that it's actually kind of interesting as someone who does reviews in one category, watching reviews in another category. I have like similar thoughts to you, right? It's like people driving a car on the track and like, oh, this one's way better at that. But like, I'm not going to drive it on a track. So that's annoying. And it makes me think, like, am I doing these kinds of things as well as part of my reviews? And hopefully I'm not. Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess if someone does drive it on a track, then that is relevant to them. So I guess maybe to some extent it's impossible.
At that point, you have to have like a crystal ball into their psyche and like understand where they're,
right. You can't be everything to everybody.
Yeah.
But hopefully it's at least relevant to a normal person and not just me.
Okay, but like as an honest answer, would you say that, I guess, your definition of a review
as
aligns
opposed to the dishonest answer that he just gave?
Well, not the dishonest answer, but like
the meme answer.
The meme answer is an honest answer, but I am curious to know his more serious answer if he has one.
I mean, the purpose of it, I don't know. I think it's kind of all of those things. It's purchase advice, it's purchase validation. It's just, trying to keep up with the zeitgeist of whatever hobby it is that you're into. But like what I want from a review is I just want someone's honest take. I want a perspective that's not my own. And hopefully it provides some insight that's relevant to me. But even if it doesn't, it just gives me a broader view of what people think. And that's kind of all I'm looking for.
A perspective is a good way of putting it.
Cool. Yeah, I would say much the same. I feel like something we might not have touched on until we started talking about, like, Andrew talking about the phone reviews. And when he said that, I actually thought a lot about your DAP reviews, Mark, which is, what don't I know about this product?
Yeah.
Like, what should I know about this product if I'm going to, obviously that's kind of purchase advice, but it's also kind of like, it's an opportunity to learn more about that class of devices as a whole.
Right.
Which I feel like the reviews I really look for are the ones that have some level of expertise. Like whenever I would read like a Crin written review, sometimes there would be these like delicious little nuggets about like how IEMs are like actually made or tuned or the story behind them. And those were always the parts of it that, kept me coming back.
That is the thing that is so much more interesting than, is this something that people should buy? Obviously that's part of it, but I think it's so much more interesting if there's something that's like a novel concept that works out well, right? Like, or this tuning is really, really on point and for these reasons, and this is how they achieved it. Like, to me, that's
even if it's not, and this is similar to all the things out here, and here's why, because they're all actually acoustically similar or something like that.
It's so much more interesting than whatever, is this a useful thing at the price? And I get that does not jive with what people want necessarily from a review, because they want to know if this is something they should buy.
So
right? Like,
I would say,
first and foremost.
Can I cut in here? I think that this is giving me flashbacks to a very long time ago when Tile started publishing reviews. Which I'm sure all of us were there then and remember what an interesting time that was for the hobby. No, just me.
I don't think I
was. Youngins.
I was
all there. we were in the comments on.
No, I wasn't. I was not online. I was not nearly as online then as I am now.
Have you like some of the comments on Interfidelity, like at the bot, like after the reviews, would be quite harsh.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, Tile always had thick skin. I love that guy. Anyway, what I was gonna say is, as you get into the hobby, like deeply into the hobby, I think that you move from looking for product recommendations to being interested in some of the, I mean, we've described this before as kind of a meta hobby, right? Like that over time you stop actually wanting to buy new headphones and start being interested in acoustics or audio theory or music theory or whatever. And those become the thing you obsess with.
Well,
yeah, no, exactly. Except so you get into a different hobby from actually being about headphones.
Yeah, but that's I'm thinking of it more closely to what Griffin just said, where it's like when we're, so for example, the whole new meta thing was a That was a good example of what I'm talking about, where it was like, why does this sound better? Oh, it's because we didn't understand what IEMs should sound like, for example, or something along those lines, right? We didn't understand, for example, that the fact that the pinna was being bypassed meant that our analysis needed to be updated, right, with a better understanding of population average pinna effects, for example,
Maybe.
right, or maybe, right, or the lower mid dip thing, like not having that was actually a beneficial thing, or now we have from the Harman research new information suggesting that proportional bass and treble is the thing that matters, regardless of how, well, not regardless, but and you can get there in multiple ways. This logs with what we've been saying for a long time, but this is like now evidence for that. And to me, it's like, that's the thing that's interesting. I'm not saying necessarily, I'm not talking about like novel driver concepts or whatever, or novel magical whatever, or not, or even unique acoustic, real tangible acoustic ways of doing that. Like Helmholtz resonators and IEMs is not as interesting to me as it's cool, but it's not as interesting to me as like
he's a theory boy.
Yeah, I'm a theory
what you're
boy.
articulating is that what interests you is different than what interests Griffin and I. Because what Griffin and I found interesting was finding information about some of the underpinnings of how this worked, how the sausage was made, and that slowly became more and more.
I was more interested in why the sausage was good.
It's both for me, absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
I think when it comes to what I
stuff,
think most of the people who would like watch or read a review about a product, it's more likely to be interesting to people to find a mechanism to that product or about how it works that they may not know how it works yet, and kind of educate them on that.
I'd like to note that Chad is very much in favor of Blaine reviews.
They think
I am too. It's just people would be mad. People would get very mad.
Is there a reason you don't review?
They don't let me.
Oh wow,
that's not
true. Although we wouldn't let you.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say. So if I filmed a 1-minute review and said, "Hey, put this on on Patreon or some shit," so it doesn't have to, so it's like away from the general audience, would we upload it
on Patreon? We don't have a Patreon. If we
did, why would we?
Sure,
why would we need to do it hidden?
Because that will avoid a lot of the hate.
It's not just the thing is it's also the community that would hate.
Oh yeah, no, the community would hate me a lot.
It's not, yeah.
It would also depend what headphone it is.
I wanted to just mention that whenever I've given Blaine a head, or like handed Blaine a headphone that is a headphone that he is interested in, that he hasn't heard before, his first instinct is to take it apart. That's the first thing he does every single time. He takes the screwdriver out of his pocket and is like, okay, now I'm going to take this apart.
See, that's why my reviews would be interesting. People would love that shit.
Yeah, people like iFixit.
Yeah.
Imagine I would just have I'd have a table cam. Like I'd listen to it, I'd give some quick impressions, I'd take it apart.
Blame the Ripper.
Yeah, no, I'm serious. I think people would love that shit. Like, I think that my version of autistic curiosity is underexposed in this space.
I actually think you're right. I wish I was more confident in not even my ability to take things apart, but just like that it's okay that I take things apart. Like I wish,
but we do it anyway.
Yeah,
like we do take things apart. Like, let's be clear. Like, not everything. Not to the degree.
Yeah, I don't always feel great about doing it though, because like most of the things aren't owned by me, so I don't. I don't want to do that.
That would be the thing. Like,
we don't own. None of us keep the products that they're not our property.
Someone asked if I would get into the selling screwdrivers meta. I have an LTT screwdriver.
Would you sell it?
Blessed.
Make it for cheaper. Sell it.
I mean, so this is just a pro tip. If anyone wants the LTT screwdrivers, basically the same but cheaper, it's the Mega Pro Automotive one. Like, it has the same, it's worse in most respects. It's got a less fine feeling ratchet. It has a worse magnet, etc. But it's like $25. So that's what I used to use. And then when that was my favorite screwdriver, and LTT was like, we made a better version of this, and it's like, sick, I'll pay for that.
Yeah. So I have an alternative to Blaine Fix It, or Blaine Fix Everything. It's Blaine Breaks It.
Yeah, I mean,
Blaine breaks everything.
Sometimes
That's my
in the
pitch.
course of surgery, the patient does not survive.
Yeah. No, but like as a segment, that'd be awesome. A Blaine breaks it segment. I'm all on board for that.
Yeah.
I mean,
in the
if you
IM
think about it,
world,
Jerry Rig Everything's thing is he's like cuts into it
Yeah.
with the hardness testers.
Yep. I was going to say, and I don't know if I've seen it so much in the headphone world, but I feel like there is kind of like a corner of IM YouTube that is about pulling things apart.
Yeah,
like familiar
Short
with
Bus?
Short Bus does it a little bit. Hi-Fi Audio, they're into dissecting the IMs, and they don't usually come out the other end.
The Empire Ears Raven, you didn't even need to intend to do that; it just did that.
Oh, nice.
It's interesting to me that happened to you, but not to a lot of other people.
Oh no, it happened to a lot of other people. It was as soon as it got into the hands of the public, the Head5 posts were filled with that.
Okay, Destroyer.
I think we still have the parts somewhere.
But kind of to the point of the question of, what is the review? What is the purpose of a review? The secondary text that Brandon added was that a lot of the drama surrounding reviews is often because people come to a review with a different expectation of what it is.
Mm-hmm.
How often do you guys feel like that happens for you?
What is the expectation? Is the expectation that it is going to validate their purchase?
Well, yeah, no, I genuinely think it is. Like, I think for a lot of people, because there's kind of a dearth of negative reviews in this space.
Well, you
I would
gotta
say
make a
there are
big
more
scowly
positive
face
reviews
on
than
the
negative
thumbnail.
reviews.
You got to be like, don't like it.
Well, I think it's kind of reinforced the expectation that if a person goes into this hobby and thinks that reviews are post-purchase validation, they'll be right a lot of the time, actually. Yep. So when they encounter the odd negative review, I actually think it can be pretty surprising, especially if you're, not one of the people that regularly follows someone like Mark.
I will say
I wouldn't even consider Mark an overly harsh reviewer. Like,
no, I wouldn't.
He's willing to give out negative reviews. Like,
but he's meaningfully less negative than you are, for example, than either of you are actually.
It's just because we're meanie boys.
Mark is less negative in his general cant towards product than either of you two are.
Probably.
So, the thing is, it's also not just to further with the question about like the expectations. It's not just the audience's expectation. It's kind of like the industry's expectation.
Yeah.
You're right there, Blaine.
Soma Funk says, if the headphone fails, then Blaine hoofs it over his head into a bin behind him.
No, that's the first thing.
That's the last shot cut to black. And
that's perfect.
Well, isn't that the sign that you like it though?
Yeah, because he does that with the headphones he likes.
Yeah, which headphones have you thrown over your head?
The ones he's wearing right now.
There you go.
The thing is, I expect these to survive.
You could probably throw like the Dan Clark headphones over your head and they'd survive.
I think that's probably true. That's probably true.
Yeah. I would feel so bad doing that.
Like an Eon, you could do that.
I love that the spread, like the pronunciation being correct, is spreading. The number of people who say Aeon cause me pain.
I still say Aeon just to fuck with you, though.
I noticed that, but I do appreciate that sometimes you forget and say it correctly.
I don't know if I've ever said it out loud. I don't want to now.
Just say the Noir or the Noir X.
But I guess, listener, you're bringing up a point that was making me think that like some of the feedback I'll see sometimes is people are expecting a review to be objective, and there's too much of the reviewer in the content, which is an interesting perspective. I don't share at all because I feel like it's impossible to remove the reviewer from the review.
Yeah, that's just an epistemological error.
But it's a common one. And maybe the underlying
it is. It is omnipresent. I yell at people for that so much.
Yeah. So we all agree the point of a review is not to be an objective review.
Well,
even the ones that are positioned as objective are not.
What the fuck is an objective review, right? Like, it's
an oxymoron.
Yeah, you can provide some objective data, that's true. But anytime you get into interpretation, you're in subjective. If you say this is bad performance in an objective area, that is a subjective judgment. And that's perfectly fine and valid. That's the purpose of review. Review is opinion. Like, this is something that is already legally distinguished. It's why reviews are generally quite well legally protected, is that reviews are opinion rather than objective reporting inherently. So if you say this is bad, you are not making a defamatory statement in most legal systems.
Yeah, something Andrew kind of, an idea he exposed me to about his own review process that we've discussed more than plenty of times.
I've exposed many things to you.
Anyway, is that obviously we both agree that reviews cannot be objective, and striving for that isn't really even possible or advisable, I guess. But he does try to be fair, which is, I think, probably the closest you can come to being objective, because it's not so much about I guess your own experience as it is kind of looking at the product in the context which it exists. And, this is also opinion based, but kind of determining what criticisms are, I guess, reasonable.
Well, and in some cases, fairness requires that you absolutely dunk on a product because it is the worst thing of all time. Like that is in all fairness.
There is some product that is literally the single worst product.
Yeah, or but there's many products that are also just bad, and
that should be better given the resources available to the companies making them.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a hot take.
What's up?
I think that's something which gets... Okay, the question of should this be better for what the company is capable of is sort of one of those things where I can see a reasonable case that it shouldn't factor that much into our judgments. Like there's sort of a death of the author thing where ultimately the consumer isn't buying the potential of a company. The consumer is buying a product.
Okay, so I have a question about this. I'm curious what you guys think. So this was raised, I can't remember where this was raised. It might have been raised in conversation with Dr. Olive, but we are very much scrutinizing, sound quality to the high heavens. We evaluate with measurements. We do all this kind of stuff, and we use preference bounds from known research. But all of that is done in blind or controlled conditions, right? So that it's the sound that's being controlled for. But when people are buying these products, they are literally never using them this way, right? Like they are never, right? So we're isolating and controlling one factor, and we are judging the product based on that control and that isolation, at least in large part, right? But the critique would be, how much should we consider just how that doesn't log with the way that with people's experiences of these products at large, because they are influenced by all these other factors, like, for example, brand, things that have nothing to do with the sound quality. And I'm just wondering how much we should care about that. How much you think reviewers should care about that?
Well, I mean, I think that it's perfectly fine to speak to that. I think that that's harder to carry over, though, right? Like, if you are personally a very big fan of, let's say, Dr. Dre, like, let's imagine for a moment that there was
Clearly, I am.
cultural Yeah, I mean, you are known for not forgetting about Dre.
Yeah. I know every lyric to that song.
Right. So,
I'm not joking.
Innocent, I'm sure you do. In that scenario, and in a scenario where having that be visibly part of your identity was something for you, you might say that's something that makes me like the Beats Solo, whatever it is now, Solo 4, more than a comparable small portable Bluetooth headphone, let's say the Moondrop Edge, right? And you can say that, and I don't think anyone would really begrudge you saying that in a review. But I suspect that that's going to carry over less than a lot of other things that you might invoke, because that's going to be an intensely personal thing.
Well, that's also just one example, though, because the other examples would be things much more basic. How does it feel when you pick it up, for example?
Oh, no, that shit should be much more in reviews. Full stop.
Yeah. How does it feel when you... It's not even about how to... Like, comfort, obviously, is the massive one.
Feel?
But, like, what is your sort of, like... what? People will have that sort of sentimental attachment that they build from a product. How do you actually, as a reviewer, how do you tap into that? And then how do you kind of reflect that to the I'm thinking of Meze.
How do you exploit it? More importantly.
You would go there, but the whole Meze design philosophy is built around this concept of creating products that are visually and from there's a word for this, but the pick-upableness and feel.
Yeah, they're
whatever.
tactilely pleasant.
Yeah, they're built around this as part of what creates people's sort of sentimental and emotional attachment to these products, and people genuinely have better experiences for that. How do you, if we're sitting there being dickheads talking about like sound, frequency response and comfort at the very least, we're talking about those things, and then the offhanded comment is, well, it sure is built nice.
I mean, I would say we as a I guess as a group of reviewers, and I'm not just talking about the reviewers here. I think most of the reviewers I would call friends pay a lot of attention.
Pardon me, they're part of our web of influence.
Oh yes, that's right. We are the.
Do we have a web?
I think they pay a lot of attention to stuff like that, and I think for our audience it makes sense to do so, and for a wider audience it might even make more sense to spend more time on that stuff. But what's interesting is when I watch reviews of like say the Meze Empyrean 2, for example, I feel like the chorus of people talking about how nice it looks, how nice it feels, and then talking about the sound quality, I don't know. I feel like there are times when accounting for important variables like that can maybe actually overshadow some of the flaws of the product. But you need to mention
the Empyrean
both.
2 is not the best example. I think the Empyrean 1 is the good example for that.
No, I thought Empyrean 2 was much worse, but it doesn't really matter because all I'm saying is regardless of if a viewer feels like you're undercovering it or overcovering it, you need to do both.
I get what you're saying. Yeah. Empyrean 1 had way spicier upper treble. Way spicier. So I don't think that's why.
Yeah, I don't know. The whole of the treble was annoying on Empyrean 2 versus Empyrean 1 just having that one spot.
Sorry.
Anyway, it was just an offhand example. Like you could say the same about Elite. I don't really have too strong an opinion of any of them.
Let's say the 109 Pro, because we all kind of would.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's one where I really don't think it's as comfortable as people.
I think
it's
either. Very, very comfortable.
Yeah, I did not find it that comfortable. The ear cups were quite small in it. What's interesting is I see a lot of people complaining about the 6 series velour, like the HD6 series velour pads, like how they're a little bit like itchy and scratchy. And I never felt it with those, but I feel it with the 109 Pro.
Interesting.
I can see that.
Did you know that the 109 Pro, if you bend the top headband, it does have some, like if it's too clampy for you, it can
unclamp.
Unclamp, yeah.
It was more so ear cup issues.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It feels very nice in the hand, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, your point here holds, though, Griffin, which is that like the tendency for people to overfocus on the or it's often like there's a footnote. Focused. Yeah. So
there's actually maybe a couple ways to answer this question, but I also wonder from people that watch our reviews, like to what degree do they want us to separate these things?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm thinking like I'm certainly not immune to this stuff. I feel like we talked about something similar earlier today, but like I'm not immune to the aesthetic and comfort and other aspects influencing the way that I hear something. But I do try to, as best as possible, separate that stuff. And I think there's certainly been headphones where my conclusion has been I like it more than it sounds good because of the whole of the thing, like the sum is greater than the parts, or whatever that phrase is. Sure. The 99 Classics is actually a headphone I kind of like once I did a pad swap on it, even though I can be very particular about the sound not matching what I'm looking for.
You can be direct about it sounding bad. We literally have a test where it was the least preferred thing. That wasn't the Night Owl.
They pad swap it. They pad swap it, so it
I know.
It is.
I'm just being like saying as at a baseline, its sound quality
Yeah.
is crap is okay.
Sure.
How do you feel about the Eris?
I haven't. I've only heard it with Zeos's demo of that movie,
Oh, right.
and it was just glass crashing. I was like,
"Oh
"That's
right, you were there. I remember that. You were there when I
Easy.
took the picture
I
of
have
Constantine wearing the hentai phones."
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, my impression of that is it sounds like glass crashing, but that's because that's what he made me listen to.
Glass crashing and thud.
But I mean, like as someone who's like watching reviews, my assumption is that to a large degree they can make up their own mind about the aesthetic and like how much it appeals to them. And so I try to, when I'm describing the sound, like recognize, these things might be making me feel better about the sound, and like try to talk about just the sound in a way that somebody watching it who doesn't feel the way I do about it aesthetically can come up with a different conclusion. But
well, and that's the thing too, right? Like what you just said it, like not everybody is going to be similarly influenced by aesthetics, the feel, brand, whatever else,
I think
right?
it's a good thing to say what you feel about these things, though, so that people can know that those may have been a factor, right?
Right,
totally.
right.
So, like,
You need
if you
to-
were
you need to
really
disclose
into how
that.
something looks,
Mhm.
being like, and it gives some humanity to a review, frankly, like, particularly for the people who are watching grognards like us, like, we are deep in the trenches. Someone who is not likely going to be like, should I get an AirPod or what this Resolve guy recommends? Or should I get,
I recommend AirPods.
I know. I mean, that's the grand surprise of,
Yeah.
hey, it's the IQ
Oh, yeah.
distribution meme, right? AirPods, Weird IAM's AirPods. But my point here is that like our core audience has some degree of parasociality with us.
It
Just
is
because
true. Yeah.
we as personalities are to some degree interesting to people who have sacrificed so much of their lives to this for some reason.
Yeah, and you've sacrificed other people for it.
Nothing has
sacrifice.
ever been proven. I want it on the record.
Yeah. No, and I do. Oh, go
Go
ahead.
I was just gonna say there's kind of a related thing that I can't remember if it was you, Andrew, or Griffin that was bringing it up, but like and maybe this isn't exactly what you were saying, like to what degree does like our expectation for what that brand is capable of influence what we think the thing sounds like, right? Like if the HD 490 had come from Hyphaman instead, would we be like, wow, this is amazing? Like, would there have been a different, less comparison to the HD 600, for example?
Very similar to
sure. But I mean, like, is its proximity to the HD 600 so close that like it's impossible to escape that comparison because it's Sennheiser? Whereas if it was from FIO, you had to say all three of them because I don't know which one it is, but you have to satisfy everybody. No, but yeah, like if the FT1 Pro had come from Sennheiser, would you guys have been as enthusiastic about it, or would you be like, it's still not as good as the HD 600? I don't know.
It's a good question.
I think people would have been more enthusiastic about the FT1 if it came from Sennheiser.
Well,
people would be like, oh my god, Sennheiser made a good closed back.
I'm not a fan of the cups. I gotta be honest. They look and feel cheap.
Yeah, so that's the thing, and why I think the 490 Pro is actually kind of a good example, because it wouldn't really be about the sound. If if Hi-Fi Man released that headphone, I would be like, this is easily Hi-Fi Man's best made headphone. Why is it like $400? And even if it sounded the way it did, I didn't have much good to say about the sound. So it would have been another Hi-Fi Man headphone I don't love, but it would have been more impressive. Whereas because it's Sennheiser, it's like Sennheiser did it again.
Right. Or if it was a Razer headphone, you'd be like, wow.
Yeah. I mean, anyone made that headphone, I would be impressed at the build, because the build is impressive. But how impressed would have maybe moderately changed.
That MRS is poking at here. Like I'm thinking of the Astro A50, right? Like the Astro A50, the new ones, the FR, and actually they're surprisingly decently put together. I mean, they're not amazing, but they're surprisingly decent. I was just shocked to see that, right? Like that was a blown away moment in a way that if let's say HyperX decided to become Continent once more and released that, I wouldn't be nearly as shocked because they have released.
Did you say continent or competent?
No,
Continent.
I'm implying that they've been shitting and farting in many of their recent releases.
But wasn't there continents associated with Odyssey making their products?
Or was some of it, yeah. Are you okay, Griff? No, but I mean, but you see what I mean, though, right? Like Astro has this long history of releasing truly bad headphones, and then they come and hit something that's really pretty much a home run. But if that had come from or Epos, right? Epos has made some decent. I don't even know if Epos still exists, but when they existed, they made some pretty decent headphones because they were just Sennheiser's gaming division. They weren't amazing. They weren't actually anything that they made. I don't think is probably as good as the new A50, but still, you get what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's sort of a comeback factor.
Sure.
I remember that with Razer actually, with their ANC thing that had a really good FR. Everyone was like,
"Yeah, it had a hiss issue though." That
it did.
Yeah.
In the IM world, the example that comes to mind is the new Moondrop Meteor. It's like if that was a Litshore or a File product, I'd be like, holy crap. But because Moondrop makes a couple of other IMs that are very similar, in fact, I like better, it's like, yeah, it's kind of disappointing.
I feel like the Meteor was so close, dude.
You might still like it, though. I don't know. You should try it.
I genuinely think I probably would, but looks dem mids look 10.
So did we get to the next part of this question, which is why do each of you review products? Is it for personal enjoyment or
no, I would love to get to that. I don't have a card for it.
And this is from Taryn. At what point did it hit you that reviewing wasn't just a hobby anymore?
Oh, well, that's a separate one.
Oh, is it a separate one?
Those are two separate topics.
Those are two separate topics.
Those are two separate topics.
So the why do each of you review products and what are you trying to accomplish with your reviews is actually the second part of Brandon's post.
Yeah. Mine is from a deep sense of self-loathing and poor decisions, poor life choices. That's why. Go ahead.
I mean, mine is that from my entry into this space, I think I had a pretty different perspective than most of the people I know in terms of how they listen to products. Like, I had basically always been biased in favor of unpacking the actual listening experience through FR because I had been sniffing frequency response before I had ever really joined the online part of this hobby. So a lot of the language people used was very confusing to me at first, and I eventually did learn what they meant, but I never stopped thinking about it the way I think about it. So I wanted to kind of share that as well as share another part and make people feel less weird for it, which is that I tend to have different taste than people as well. Like, I tend to be a little bit more on the treble sensitive side, a little bit less forgiving of treble colorations as well. And I feel like part of why I wanted to review was not seeing both kind of the FR centric review style, but also kind of filling a gap in taste in the, I guess, marketplace of voices out there.
And certainly, I don't know however many years ago now, like, things have come, they sort of stepped away from the ledge of Mount Bayer to a significant degree. I cannot imagine what it would have been like had you gotten into reviewing back in the T1 era.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Because, I mean, I will say a lot of my kind of process is informed by my own experience of frequency response. But the fact that I got into it right at around the time measurements of an entire class of device became more useful than they were prior. Certainly helps.
No, that is kind
at least when it comes to communicating what I'm hearing to other people.
Yeah.
As far as what I'm trying to accomplish with my reviews, and I guess, is it for personal enjoyment? I would say no. I would say if I had it my way, I would probably be doing something more on the research side of things.
You are condemned to review.
Everyone
I think in
says
a
they
sense
want
we
to do
all are,
research
right?
until they actually have to do the research, though.
Well, I'm not saying I would be
learning
first
about it.
first
like
person
reading it.
named on the
I
paper.
like doing it.
Like,
Oh no, what I mean is that it's just much more miserable than people think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough.
I can imagine.
But what I was gonna say is, and this is something that Jamie brought up earlier, is that what Jamie said was, I think we all get harder to please the longer we do this.
It's definitely true.
And to an extent, that does make it harder to kind of review the way an ordinary person would experience the product. But I think, per what we said earlier as well, we all kind of start at headphones and then kind of branch to different areas of headphones, to the meta hobbies. And I think, because my interest is no longer in like finding the best headphone for me, because I can pretty safely guess if a headphone will or won't be for me based on what people say, what measurements gesture towards vaguely.
And if there are cartoon children on the box.
And if there are cartoon children on the box or in my ears when I'm switching presets.
Pardon me?
Yeah.
The Moondrop Edge or Moondrop's wireless products tend to have an anime girl that indicates when you're switching between A and C modes.
The only time it drives me nuts is when it loses connection and she's just like disconnected. I'm like, you can't be cute right now.
She's
mad.
so sad.
You can't be cute.
She's so sad we're disconnected.
I don't like that. I don't like that.
Yeah, we can get into that a little bit later. But
oh my god, I need to do a review of this product.
Yeah, I'll send it to you once I get my pictures for it.
I have a take, by the way. I think that there's actually like a sort of Dunning-Kruger thing with level of pickiness, where like people, I think, get less picky early on in the audiophile space as they get kind of brainwashed into, oh, that's just that house sound. And then they progressively get more and more picky. But I think at some point it does taper off and you start to get a little bit less picky. Like you can return back to normality after years of elitism.
Well, this is also
I think that's
also
true.
when you stop caring about. I do this whole bit where I say, like, listen to the gear, not the music, if you want to actually properly evaluate the product, because music is good, and that's the problem. So you're
Someone
not going to
that.
have
That I feel like is a good
music is good and that's
resolve quote.
Yeah, well, you're predisposed to liking the thing, right? If you're
I know what you mean. It's just funny.
So with that bit, right? Like, I'm not sure if this fits with the Dunning-Kruger description you gave, Blaine, but I do think that once you step back into that zone of just enjoying the music, it becomes a lot easier for that level of scrutiny, that scrutiny threshold, to go down a bit, because now you're no longer in that asshole analytic mode, if that makes sense.
Why is it asshole? That seems like such a harsh way of framing it.
I think what actually partially informs kind of the rise back up at the end of the curve is, once you've been doing this a while and have heard kind of everything, you get a sense of like, one, what's actually possible, and two, what's actually out there. And once you kind of have the borders there,
you understand the landscape.
You know the context completely. Of like, comparatively, this is actually pretty reasonable.
I will say though, all of us are very much still in that spoiled category of listening to products that are considerably better than the vast majority of things that exist, that we just nobody covers, because it's just like waste, just like factory churn garbage.
So I was talking about this on LinkedIn the other day, which is a cursed statement that I never wanted to make. The 2020s are a dark time for us all. But the Jacob Sondergaard at Head Acoustics, not Head Audio, did sort of an MDAX version of Sean and of Brebart's thing, where they compared sound quality to price for headphones. And he actually found a higher correlation than either Sean or Brebart did. Not a large one, but still a higher correlation. And one of the things that I found that was sort of interesting about that is that you could say, okay, maybe it's just MDAX is more forgiving, right? Or maybe MDAX's emphasis on channel matching.
Sorry, was it specifically the MDAX algorithm that gave it a higher correlation?
Well, all we had was MDAX score versus price.
Okay, so okay, got you. So it wasn't like a separate thing that they came up with for this.
Yeah. Gotcha. So so also MDAX has said it factors in interchannel matching. So again, higher end stuff is more likely to be better there, particularly because it was consumer products.
Well, because I don't know if that's true, by the way.
This is for consumer products from real companies, not from audiophile companies. So like a $600 product from Bose or Apple is more likely to have better channel matching than a $60 product from those sorts of companies.
Yeah.
But what I was sort of pondering is the other thing is that it was a convenience sample that was basically just what people happen to own. And I do think that maybe we fall into this thing where we treat this marketplace as having much less trend towards good things than it may have. Like there's a lot of bad headphones that are models that exist, but I don't see them selling or
I think it's just because we're
really large as quantities. Like
I think our well is just poisoned.
What do you mean our well is poisoned?
Okay, this is a bastardization of poisoning the well, but like we are, because of where we exist in this space, we are less likely to come across the absolute trash tier stuff.
Well, I mean, yeah, we are less likely to come across the trash tier stuff, but what I mean is that if you look at the actual average of what was sold, I think that it would be much better than the average of all the models that exist unweighted by sales.
But how are you like of what is sold, period?
Yeah.
I don't know how you're getting that information.
Well, that's the thing. I don't have that information. We have some of it though. Like we have things like we can look at what headphones have sold really well from publicly available data, like the HD6XX, like the M50X. And yes, the M50X is a better than average headphone.
Yeah, which is that's what I'm saying. And that's kind of the problem.
But the thing is, the M50X may very well be the average headphone. Like it is in terms of if you
it would not surprise me.
Volume,
yeah, I get what you're saying.
It has massive sales volume. And a lot of stuff that is really crap is just not that well selling. Like a lot of the companies that mostly turn out sell that many units.
An important point. Really Old Cobb says, that's Jake. Shout out to Jake.
99% AirPods.
So like if you remove AirPods from the equation, does this dramatically change?
Probably.
So people in chat are now hating on the M50X. I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying that it's better than your generic headphone if you just picked a random headphone on Amazon.
Well, you also have to factor in like a lot of those like high volume stuff that like basically like, you know, headphones for airlines, for example. There's a lot of them.
Well, I mean, let's leave aside.
But that's not even that's one example. Like headphones for company X that requires headphones, like
sure, but let's say things that are deliberately purchased, right? Things which are consumer headphones or audiophile headphones. I still think that people underrate the degree to which people are discerning. Like I think
does Amazon have like a list of their top selling headphones?
Yes,
like something you find, right?
It's not exactly a reliable list. It changes very often, and the criteria isn't exactly.
Well, the main thing is that the categorization is not always consistent. So something might be a headphone or a gaming headset or whatever. So depending on what you're looking at, it'll shift around. So but yes, this isn't to say that the average headphone that people buy is good, but I think that we do fall into this thing of thinking, oh, well, because a model exists, you know, because, for example, I know an Oppo PM1 exists, it should be considered to be equal in share in its presence in the market to an LCD2 because of the same price, even though they probably sold like 1/10 at most as many PM1s, right? Like when we look at these studies that Sean does or that Breitbart did or that, you know, the thing that Jacob did, when we look at these things, say, is there a correlation between sound quality and price? We don't always look at the significance of people do actually differentiate to at least some degree in terms of what they buy.
Yeah. I don't care. What is do you want to move on to the next question?
Well, I don't think
right. Sorry. What was
neither Mark nor you. Well, I guess you kind of answered.
Sure. Yeah, Mark, what was your Sorry, I didn't mean to be dismissive of Blaine. That was actually very interesting. Just being a dick.
Back to the question of like, why do I review, or what was the question exactly?
Yeah, it was like, why do you review? Is it for your enjoyment, and what are you trying to accomplish?
Okay. I mean, I think I've talked about this before when I've talked about kind of like the origin of my channel. And I feel like, I mean, this isn't a question I've thought about recently, but I think the reason that I started the channel is probably still why I kind of continue doing it. It's that I'm curious and trying a lot of things, like, and I have a short attention span, and this is just a really good excuse to do that. Like, I would personally feel very bad about just buying all the IMs that I'm listening to if I wasn't doing something productive with it, I guess. Right.
Very fair.
And I feel like that's probably still the case for me, to be honest.
It's a pretty good answer too, to be fair.
Yeah.
Hey, chat, would you guys be interested in seeing a review by Resolve of the top selling headphones on Amazon?
I'll do it. I've done it before.
I was looking at the list. There's a lot of like $40 Bluetooth, $20 Bluetooth headphones.
Yeah.
But those are exactly the kind of things I think I gotta should have reviews of. Like,
the Beats Studio, the Beats Studio Pro X Kim Kardashian version. That's the one I got to review.
Well, that's just the Beats Studio Pro in a different color.
I kind of like.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want them all.
It's like a dark beige.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a what is it? Nude skin tones.
Yeah. That's exactly what I want on my head.
Yeah.
It's a look. It's dope.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and another thing that came to mind with this question, or maybe it was the Terran question afterward, or some combination of the both, but I guess another part of why like I continue doing it, because I've been doing this now for almost 8 years at this point.
Time.
Yeah. And you know, there have been times in the past where I'm like, most of my hobbies I don't have this level of focus and interest on for this long, right? It's like I'll get into something, I'll dive into it for 5 years, and then I'll kind of burn myself out on it. And it hasn't happened with the audio world. And I think part of it is that I feel like I've built something that I'm now proud of, right? Is like the YouTube channel and Squig.link. And it's like, that is like kind of like its own motivation to continue doing this thing.
100%.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I suppose I'm just thinking, I imagine if I asked Douglas something, you know, he might answer something similar, right? Where there's like a, you know, he's built this, you know.
Yeah, there's an inertia.
Yeah. I don't know. Why do I do this? I stare at the mirror every day for hours on end asking myself this question.
I mean, presumably at least part of it is the money.
It's before I start drinking.
I mean, don't we care about putting ideas out into the community, though? Like, I'd like to think that all of us.
Yeah, I'm being a dingus.
Yeah, I think the subtext that none of us are probably going to say explicitly, but like probably should be said, is that we also want to help our viewers like be educated consumers.
So ultimately, to me, it's less about like it is obviously my job, right? And like I could do other things. This is the best job in the world. Like I get to listen to headphones, like, and make videos. I love making videos, and I love making videos, and I love listening to headphones. So it's like, this is great. So functionally, it's a very obvious thing for me to be doing. But like, what do I get joy out of when it comes to reviewing? Right, is sort of the related question there, and part of so much of it for me is trying to push the discourse in a what I feel is a positive direction. So even if people are like not jiving with the way that I review things or what my judgment on a product is, I care deeply about the relationship that people have to that I have to information, and so this is a way to express that. Yeah, and it could technically be about other things in different domains. I just happen to like headphones, so and audio, listening to music and stuff like that. I do need a new couch. That would be fun. Should we?
This is what he calls fun.
Should we move on to that? Could then get a subwoofer. What are we talking about?
Yeah. Okay. So the next one is a question from our man in the sky, Taryn.
Was he dead? What the fuck?
No, he's just watching us. He's just watching us all.
He's haunting me right now because he doesn't like my take that consumers may be somewhat selective for sound quality.
The question is, at what point did it hit you that reviewing wasn't just a hobby anymore? Or something to that effect. I'm probably paraphrasing.
Well, I guess my answer was kind of what I talked about. It's like, it is still a hobby for me. Like, I don't make a living from this as much as that would be cool to be able to do. But it's like, maybe where it stopped being just about the hedonistic, I want to listen to new stuff, and it became about also, I'm building something. I don't know when that moment was. Maybe it was like the second Can Jam I went to and somebody recognized me. I was like, well, okay, that's kind of cool. It's like,
sorry, Eminent one says death threats.
Death threats is why I do this.
No, that's when you knew.
That's when you knew. That's when you knew.
Gotcha.
Yep.
I don't think I've ever got a death threat.
I have.
I had someone say they wanted to beat me up yesterday.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
Listen, I didn't mean that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, why are you leaking Blaine's DMs?
I've gotten death threats several times from Blaine.
They weren't death threats.
I think death was implied.
They were threats. Okay, saying that you're gonna hunt me for sport is
you could survive. Catch and release fishing exists.
This is fair. So threats of violence.
Yes, exactly. Least. They were threats of bodily harm.
Yeah, but no, I have actually received death threats.
No, I have received death threats from Blaine.
Oh, okay, no, I've received death threats from just like people in the.
It's just usually in the form of a funny GIF.
Yeah. Oh, but for me, it's like I said something mean about a product that someone owned, and it didn't jive with their purchase validation, so they decided to take it out in the form of particularly vitriolic language towards me.
Is that when you knew reviewing wasn't a hobby anymore, though?
What the fuck?
Oh my god, someone actually did say he wanted to take you behind a woodshed and beat your ass.
Wait, what? Where is this?
I just dropped it in the ping GG chat.
Oh my god.
Oh, I just saw that. I was like, what? Oh my god.
That's the best.
Oh my god, wait, that's recent too. What the fuck?
Yeah.
That was yesterday. Yeah.
So what a wonderful hobby this is.
Oh
no,
man.
I've received death threats from the community, or threats of death threats is one, but another one is like, I hope you get cancer and die, that kind of thing. But another one, I've actually received threats of violence from people, like well-known people in the community. Now this was a long time ago, and it's been we hashed it out, but there was
touch and go for a second there. It sounds like
shouting spill the tea soon.
I'll spill the tea privately for folks.
Great.
But no, it's already been it is somewhat water under the bridge because it was a misunderstanding.
Can there ever truly be a misunderstanding when threats of violence are involved?
I actually think I still have the DM. Anyway,
I mean, admittedly, that's hypocritical coming from me, but
yeah, it really is. No, like to answer the question, at what point did it hit you that reviewing wasn't just a hobby anymore? I think it's when I had the obvious answer is like when it becomes your job and you're actually earning money. This is your living, right? Doing it. But I think I have a slightly adjacent thought process to this, where it like actually becomes something that you internalize. Which, or at least for me, it was like this. It was when I became cynical. No, it's when I stopped. My appreciation and enjoyment of these products stopped being attached to the kind of mythology around them, if that makes sense. So like you guys have talked in the past about like
I feel like I can identify when in the timeline this was, because it was, I think, a little bit after you started working for headphones.com.
Yeah, but I think it's kind of inevitable, right? Because the amount of stuff that comes through, right? So many of these products and it's like this for me as well, right? When I was doing it for fun and as a hobby, so many of these products were still aspirational for me.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, they stopped becoming aspirational. They became now like a matter of process or procedure, because I'm not getting these in as things to own. I'm getting these in as things to evaluate and judge from on high.
People in chat are saying that your hair was holding you back, and that's what shaving your head is what allowed you to break free.
No, I mean, I think the actual answer is it stopped being a hobby once you met Blaine.
No, then it was just then it became suffering.
Mythology dispel immediately. And then
no, but the aspirational side of things and the mythology side of things, like that happened way before I met Blaine. That happened, I want to say, like that happened in 2020, in the first sort of year, because of I think it's just a function of the sheer volume of things that came through, right?
Yeah,
and that's I think it's inevitable, right? Like, and it's kind of like people say, like if you make your hobby your job, people are kind of worried about that because they lose the joy that they get from the hobby. But at the same time, it's like my enjoyment of the hobby didn't really change that. Like the utils that I get out of the hobby didn't change that much. They just sort of shifted to a different sphere, if that makes sense, right? Like they shifted to a different area of the hobby where I was able to get enjoyment or able to get like things satisfy my curiosities about different things. And it just that the aspirational mythological side of things about these products just went away. And I think that was probably, it was a good thing, but I also kind of lament that in a way, because that was a fun, simpler time.
Sure. That makes sense. For me, it was mostly that so this is not a good trait. This is a bad trait. And to an extent, I wish I didn't feel this way. But I think when it stopped becoming a hobby for me was when I started seeing people actually buying things based on my recommendations. I feel probably a bit too much of like social responsibility for other people's decisions.
I mean, I just a question on that. Do you come across people who bought things based on your recommendation and been like, "This sounds terrible"? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, and I don't feel great about that, because I absolutely have a finite amount of money to spend on audio products, and for a while there, I was making a lot less than I am currently, but I was still interested in audio, and I still wanted to hear a lot of audio things. And kind of to Mark's point, like a lot of why I started reviewing was because I wanted to hear things, but couldn't buy them. So I definitely do feel still attached to the value system and the thought process of the person who only has like $150 to spend on a headphone,
and they're going to be really trying to maximize that. Yeah
100%. So I think once I encountered the first person who came to me in person and told me they like read a review and bought something based on that, that was the first time I was like, okay, I need to be good at minimum disclosing as much as I can about how personal audio is and how many asterisks and disclaimers and etc. need to be there when analyzing either my review or a measurement I publish or something else. And that's when it was less so just about the hobby of like talking about how I hear a thing, and more so about I guess being someone who puts out things people pay attention to and take somewhat seriously. Stressful.
Yeah. Lovely. All right.
Can I just say I'm so appreciative to Mark for linking this topic. The amount of seed in here is.
Do you follow the water cooler thread at all?
Why on earth would I follow a thread full of people? Like
oh my god, no! It's so good. Like it's so good.
I think actually they're doing a presentation at CanJam.
The water cooler is?
Oh wow!
Yeah, I think there's like a. They're doing their products of the year or something roundup.
So those are the people who wear those wooden name tags, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, so I know who to be derisive towards.
I didn't know they have their own name tags.
What's funny is I didn't actually know that.
Jude.
No, come on.
I mean,
Jude has a name tag. Warren, I think, also has a name tag. Brian has a name tag.
I have dunked both of those people to their face.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah. Hey, Jude and Warren are delightful humans.
Class acts, those two.
Yeah.
Well, I enjoy interacting with them, but I'm also willing to say that's extremely incorrect. Or even that's cope.
There are folks who come up to me at CanJams and say, "Andrew versus the water cooler," like time to fight. Just because that's usually
that's a CanJam talk I'd go to.
That is absolutely a CanJam talk I'd go to.
Blaine
really, I would just go.
I don't even know these people.
If the water cooler people
either.
were forced to be present.
But here's what happens. The reason why it happens is so regularly. So say I post a critical review or even a review that's not like glowingly positive about a thing, that will inevitably get posted to Headfi. And then all of these people will basically do whatever they can to denigrate the credibility of me or even somebody else on our team who put out, whatever the critical review is.
Why would you beat up a lifeless water cooler just trying to cool some water? He makes a good point.
This is a fair call, honestly.
Yeah. Also, someone in chat pointed something out, and I can't unsee it now. Your adjustment arms on those headphones are uneven, and it kills me inside.
Whose?
These ones?
Yes.
So I'm actually I'm getting a new headband. I don't like this one.
Okay, but just make it even because otherwise it hurts. It hurts my eyes.
I'm keeping it like this.
On my headphone 2, the headphone 2, I have to wear with uneven adjustments because the increments they're too big.
Yeah. The headphone 2. So I don't know if they're happy with me saying. I think they must be. I mean, I don't think anyone thinks that I keep things quiet unless you specifically tell me to. But when I was yelling at them about the headbands at CanJam Dallas.
SoCal was the one where Freddie was present. So.
Yeah, I was telling Freddie that they needed to fix that. He was like, "We're working on that, and it's going to be fixed soon."
Yeah,
cool.
So next topic.
So this is the one that we kind of are reanimating from the last stream. Because we had talked about it briefly, but Blaine specifically said he wanted to take much more time to talk about it. So, of course, I put it at the end of this one again. So we're only going to get a few.
Was this the topic or was this the one we actually talked about?
So we talked about it a little bit, but Blaine wanted to talk about it more.
Okay.
Which is... Did they?
I would like to hear Mark's perspective
I thought it was the other one too, but go ahead.
I also thought it was the other one.
What was the other one?
No, I don't
forgot.
What'd you say?
Oh, this is good content.
I forgot. I don't remember. There was another thing that we were starting to get into, which was the thing we were like, next time we're going to do this.
Yeah. If anybody in chat remembers.
I thought it was this one.
No, this is the one we actually
I want to hear what Mark thinks too.
Yeah. Let's go. So the
so Mark.
is, what will the hobby look like in 5 years / which headphone brand do you think will do best in that time?
Well, I have the exact answer. So if anyone wants to make investments, now would be the time.
Oh, okay.
No,
maybe we shouldn't have him answer this question.
No, I have no idea. As you guys were talking about it last week, I was like, oh, I don't know how I would answer this question. So thanks for bringing it up again. What will the hobby look like in 5 years? I feel like the IM space is kind of a little bit of a glimpse into it. Like I feel like, and maybe this is, obviously this is my perspective. This is what I'm looking at. So
cartoon
this is what I'm saying. But yeah, like the IM space seems like it's a younger corner of the audio hobby. So if you're projecting 5 years into the future, you can imagine that more of that influence will have probably seeped into the majority or more of the audio hobby. I think like the measurement stuff is kind of, obviously measurements didn't start with IEMs, but I think Critical very much popularized it. And
they might as well have, honestly.
Yeah.
What?
No, I'm saying like most of the people who are graph sniffers nowadays are sniffing the graphs of people who are doing this because Kryn did it.
Yeah, I mean,
Kryn did it because Tile did it, but I'm just saying, in terms of those people's knowledge and memory, it probably doesn't go that far back.
I'm trying to remember if I'm technically the reason it's called in-ear fidelity. I know that I said no balls if he didn't do it.
So stupid.
No, I mean, it's been, I don't know. There were people who were sniffing graphs a long ass time before that.
Oh yeah, no, of course.
Speaker measurements
there are a lot
pretty
more
common
of them now.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Kryn kitties are definitely a group. The critties, if you will.
The critties, yeah. But no, I feel like that aspect of audio is likely to be even more ascendant. I think EQ will be more accepted and more. I think to make that happen, though, there's going to have to be improvements to the user experience around EQ and making it more accessible and solving some of the problems with using, like making it so that I want to use EQ. Because as much as I recognize that EQ is incredible, I don't use it because it's kind of annoying.
Element 4.
The Element 4 is cool. I don't know. I have an idea of how to make that
even better.
Be the thing that would make me want to use EQ. And it would basically be, I want a button on Squig.link that just says, send this PEQ to my thing. And then at that point, I'm off to the races. But yeah, I think EQ potentially could be more of a dominant aspect of the hobby, partly because of what I just said, and like the younger audience being a little bit more in tune with the frequency response and the importance of that over the more classic audiophile stuff. But partly also just because of kind of the miniaturization and like cost concerns. Feel like that. If you are focused on having the least amount of stuff and spending the least amount of money, like that's the direction. And I feel like kind of all things end up pointing in those directions of being the most efficient, right? Mm-hmm. And EQ is just the most efficient way to get sound as you want.
It's personalization. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
And there is a sense in which I'm actually curious. What do you think? Like, Sean talks about this a lot, about how like personalization is the way, and because he cares a lot about true wireless products and wireless generally, where you have that. But do you think that we'll get closer to personalization, not just in terms of like wide filters of like bass and treble level, but personalization for fine grained stuff? Like what you just said, for example, like one of the issues with even something like auto EQ or any sort of EQ profile to a graph, if you even if you had the ability to push a button and send that to your thing, that wouldn't that would still be the starting point. You know what I mean? If you really wanted to dial it in. So what I'm wondering is, do you think there's going to be any advances in being able to identify that stuff for people?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, I think like AirPods is a good example of like that is likely to be more common in sort of the electronics world, where they can kind of do that stuff for you. Right? Take a measurement of your HRTF with the device that you're using and use that to tailor the sound.
Like the phone, you mean?
Sure. Like the AirPods, I feel like they do that themselves. Like they measure what's going on inside your ear and then change their sound based on it, right? So I think that'll probably become more and more common in that world. I don't know that that's necessarily going to take over what we do, though. Maybe it will, but like my interest in the hobby is not just the best sound quality, right? It's like I like the analogness of it. So like I don't see a future where Bluetooth becomes more interesting to me than the wired stuff, even if it does sound better. Like
to that point, like, and just kind of bringing it back to like what the hobby will look like in 5 years. Do you think it's likely that will kind of penetrate the market of audiophile products?
The Bluetooth and wireless?
Yeah. And kind of by extension, like active products that would have the capability for personalizations and EQ and stuff like that on board.
Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt that people will try it. I don't know that it's going to have the purchase. Maybe an analogy is like in the car world where, like, 10 years ago, let's say 15 years ago, automatic transmissions were slower than manuals, right? So like there was like this car guy reason to pick a manual transmission. But 10 years ago, that stopped being true. But there's still people that want a manual transmission. And
for fun,
no matter like how good you make an automatic or you make an electric vehicle, it's not going to supplant that thing that is what the car people are actually into.
Yeah, revving the shit out of your engine at a lower gear.
Yeah. I mean, I would argue we're already kind of in that space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean the AirPods.
So
yeah,
this is something I wanted to get into, and you were brought here in part to repudiate the bully of IEMs, which is Blaine. No, I'm just kidding. That's not the reason.
We are all the bully of IEMs. Let's make that clear.
All right. No, it's good to have a voice of the IEM folks to talk about this, because I wanted to get into a little bit like the way people actually perceive IEMs. And I feel, at least, this is somewhat related to what's going on in chat, but I feel at least that the whole technicalities language has evolved or emerged as a function of IEM popularity and IEMs getting
well,
more
it's
and more.
evolved and emerged as a product of Crin.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right? Like that whole world.
So has IEMs.
So yeah, exactly. So here's the thing, right? I maybe this is a spicy take. Maybe we should throw up spicy out right now, but I want to lead a spicy take here, which is to say that I actually think that people who are talking about technicalities a lot in IEMs are just not able to identify what those features are in FR when they are listening to them. And really what's going on here is that IEMs are bound to be more deviant from a person's HRTF, both because of depending on how it's tuned, of course, but I'm talking specifically because of pinna effects need to be assumed and because of length modes. And I say this with the context here is I recently came across an IEM, and I'm not allowed to say what it is yet, that for me doesn't actually have a length mode resonance. And I'm very curious how this kind of stuff is actually going to be perceived.
So I just want to add a little bit to what you said there.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with the first half of it. I just think there are more factors than just mismatch to the HRTF and the length mode.
Well, there's also the
that
tuning
would confound someone's ability to.
Yeah. But do you see what I'm saying? Like the people are reading the graph. It is creating this idea in their head of this is what the tonality is because this is what the graph indicates, and what they're getting at their eardrums is actually Precog Vision gave a pretty good analysis of this, where he said basically it's tasteful coloration. And the thing is, my point is that, like,
guy, rest in power, King.
He's still with us.
He's not dead.
But the point there is that almost invariably people are getting some kind of coloration with IEMs because of the nature of the device. Is highly likely that you're going to get some kind of coloration with IEMs, and so everything else that can't be that is just not attributable to the graphs is then put into the technicalities bucket.
So you're saying that the future is headphones are going to be boring and IEMs will continue to be exciting and technical.
Maybe adjacent to the whole.
Not if I have anything to do with it, Mark.
No. It actually, to me, it related more to like the popularity of TWS, for example, and personalization, where maybe some of these things could be accounted for, and then you have situations where some of those colorations go away, and suddenly they're like less technical. You know?
Yeah,
I mean, we do already see that.
But
I still just don't like the imprecision with which we use these terms. Like, I am not at all confident that when one person says something is more technical or detailed or spacious or whatever, that the aspect of sound that they're describing is something that if it was heard the same way by someone else would be described the same way.
Of
Like
course.
that's the thing
Yeah.
that's the most troubling to me.
Of course.
Well, yeah, I think that's pretty implicit, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's just
I don't necessarily agree. I
Right.
don't have the same problem that you guys do with the technical language. Yeah. And maybe it's just because I'm guilty of it. But it feels
we
like
all
to
are.
me,
We all still use it,
Sure.
unfortunately.
sure.
I would not. I would refrain from using it if the audience would meet me there, but they won't.
Well, no, it's not about.
Like you see it
need to
differently
use it
because
for them to get any value from what you're doing a lot of.
Well,
the time.
I know that's what I'm saying.
It's necessary.
If anyway,
Sorry, Mark.
No. I think of it as like kind of describing whatever it is, the phenomenon that you're experiencing versus like the recipe for how it happens.
yeah,
So what about
it's
the
describing
Noomba?
the effect, not the cause. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And I guess maybe there is a risk that people are confusing the effect for some attribute that's other than the cause, the actual cause.
Well, that's not really my complaint, though. My complaint is more I'm not sure that people use these terms in ways that are actually cross-comparable. Like a lot of people say if some person says that this is more detailed, this is less detailed, it's because they're hearing it differently. I
think that would be an
Their
interesting
attention is
experiment to
going.
do. I feel like
Yeah,
you
you
could do that with a big gathering of audio nerds, like Can Jam or something. It's like, listen to this IM, how would you describe it? And then like see what the
see what shakes
correlation. I feel like
I would be intrigued by this. I think the
Yeah.
problem is that doesn't that tests whether people can agree on whether something is, whatever term, which is the first test for whether it is a real thing at all.
if it's
And
useful.
that I'm not even sure that they would be able to do that, though. And if they were not, the arguments would be whether is that because it is physically different to them, right? Is it because it sounds different to them, or is it because
I
their
wouldn't
their
do this in
perception
an
different?
IEM first.
I was gonna say IEMs make this a lot more challenging, but with headphones, here's another problem. Well, I don't know if this is a problem. Let me know if you think this is a problem.
Headphones are mid.
Sorry. You haven't heard
I mean,
this
he's
yet.
not wrong. He's not wrong.
If you say a headphone is more HRTF-y in the sense that it has features that are likely to propagate
Every time
fine
he pulls
grain.
out that mug, I just think he's drinking from a can of baked beans.
Sorry.
I don't know what it is about the shape, but it just looks like that to me. I see it out of the corner of my eye.
Him with the baked beans, me with my NyQuil.
Exactly.
The more, let's say, specific a headphone is in its tuning, like as far as like HRTF-iness, there is I don't know if this is true, but I imagine that there's also a fairly high chance that is going to be less preferred by people for whom it doesn't match with, and so you're going to get a bigger spread of I really love this and I really hate this. And I don't know how you really
get around that. You can do a test for like, hey, is this bass high quality or low quality, and then just like
but it kind of gets fucked when
low
you talk about
pass
the
it at
treble.
like 3K. And make sure the bass instrument doesn't have any content above that.
But no, it doesn't work.
Perception of the bass.
Exactly.
What's up?
That doesn't work.
Like removing the treble will change people's perception of the bass.
100%.
No, just make sure there's no treble up there in the instrument itself.
Oh, you mean in the
yeah.
Well,
I'm saying you could just use.
I still think that gets
to do that.
I still think that gets fucky when you're talking about anything to do with the treble and anything to do with things like detail, for example, or soundstage.
Well, right,
or whatever else.
What I'm saying is, it would be a very easy way to display kind of what Blaine's talking about, which is that even the same thing at like arriving at people's eardrums would probably be attributed differently or superlative.
You're saying you're saying it would reveal Blaine's point here.
Well, and I want to emphasize, I'm not saying that this is a fact. What I'm saying instead is that we often talk as though we have evidence that people are describing effects to each other that they are hearing in the same way and describing the same way. And I feel like we're way too confident in
They
that.
do have evidence. They just have anecdotal evidence. It's the only evidence.
I wonder how much, Blaine, this is coming from your perspective being more headphone oriented, that is a little bit, like I was getting at, like a little bit more steeped in kind of the old lore, and there is a lot more of people just making shit the fuck up.
Fuck yeah.
Versus the IM world being a little bit more And not that it doesn't happen, but like I feel like I see people talking about IMs and I know what they're talking about. Whereas I go into some headphone forums, I was like, what are you talking about? I don't even.
So you think things are trending and pushing in like commonality direction?
I feel like they do, but I don't have any evidence of it.
So like to an extent, I think Mark is actually very correct here, because I feel like because of kind of
it's a shared language.
The critical of it all, there is kind of a tendency towards more unified and more concrete feeling language. Than
I would like
the headphone space, which is just scattered to the wind. But I would also say that a lot of this, again, just kind of comes back to what Blaine is saying, where there's the assumption when you're using the words that Critical used in that original piece to describe what he was talking about in that original piece, that we all actually have either the same thing we're hearing or the same description of the thing we're hearing. When in actuality,
even if we're hearing the same thing, our attention doesn't necessarily go to the same thing, so we don't attach meaning the same way.
Right, but where I'm going with this is that it's more so just that the appearance that we're all actually in step on this more than we are actually in step on this, because like the language pool is smaller. And there is more of an attention in IMs typically to
an entity without an internal experience who merely acts externally as though they had an internal experience.
Is this me?
I only got the second half of that.
Sorry, I'm just making a joke about philosophy zombies.
Yeah,
got it. But the reason I'm focusing on kind of like the appearance of coherence is because in IEMs, kind of the more data-driven aspect is also an appearance of coherence. Like we don't actually know all that well the responses people are getting, even in the band that we can have some level of certainty in headphones. We don't have nearly the level of certainty in IEMs. So there's another layer of, at least to my perception, and I could be wrong about this, but my perception kind of wading more into the pool of IEM land over the past 2 years has been, it is similar to headphones in that there is a lot of artificial cohesion in the discourse that comes about from people. I don't want to say not wanting to disagree, but not really knowing how easy it is to disagree, and for that to be okay.
Yeah, because you're only the only person in your head. I mean, in most cases.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Nobody can know exactly where
controversial take.
Maybe
nobody can know exactly where you're applying your attention and how you're associating that with what you're saying about it.
Yeah, maybe another take on that, Griffin. I'm curious if this jives with what you're saying. Is like I feel like the younger audience, which is more IAM oriented, more critical oriented, is maybe more skeptical of like kind of mythos and more oriented toward like measurements and like objectivity. But because of that, like end up with their own bias toward like,
I think that they're skeptical to what they identify as mythos. I think that they very much have their own mythos.
Sure. Yes, they do. Yeah, that is No, that absolutely does jive, Mark.
Okay.
But no, I think you're very correct. Like their aesthetic is of people who are skeptics, right? Or people who are not buying into the audiophile Kool-Aid. And then they have invented their own flavor aid.
Yes, they drink Powerade instead.
Yeah. Should we get into spicy?
You ever think how fucked up it is that Kool-Aid took the rap for that, even though it was flavor aid? It's messed up.
I don't think about that at all. Griffin, do you want to set up the? Do you want to put up the spicy hour?
I did already. It's been up for a little bit.
Excellent. Mark, do you have any spicy takes that you want to?
I would love Mark's spicy takes. Mark has some good
spicy boy.
I know.
I mean, I haven't come prepped with any except for the ones that I've been publishing on YouTube for the past week.
Yeah.
What was the spiciest? What was the thing that I got the most pushback on?
Those are ice cubes with peppers in them.
Well, I mean, like kind of to what we were just talking about. It's like, I think you guys are part of what I was describing of being, the audience of headphone enthusiasts or audio enthusiasts that are a little bit more skeptical and more data oriented. So yeah, I think most of my takes would be very cold in this audience versus you know.
Chat
Okay,
says,
Mark,
Mark,
tell
defend
me
the
why
IEM users, please.
Tell me why 3.5 millimeter is better than 4.4 balanced.
This
It's
is not a spicy
ridiculous.
take. 3.5 is just better because it's on everything. It's the ubiquity is why it's.
Where's 4.4 millimeter balanced Blaine right now?
Well, no, I mean, the thing is, the case for 3.5 is its ubiquity, and it is ubiquitous, and that's a good case for it. 4.4 is objectively a mechanically better connector. Like, nobody is going to say, man, I really love the 3.5 millimeters strength.
But could you think of a connector that's better than 4.4, and why aren't you using that?
For a size connectivity and durability standpoint, they're not a super ton, actually. Like, there are some subminiature push-pull connectors, but honestly, those would be kind of annoying. Like, I think that Pentacon is actually a really nice balance. Pun not intended.
See, I'm into 2.5 millimeters because of the
Nice.
living on the edge.
Get this
You
man
know
out
what?
of here.
2.5 is actually kind of interesting.
A thrill.
This kind of reminds me of I don't know why no one else is going to understand this, but like in the motorcycle world, there's you've probably heard this phrase, loud pipes save lives, right? It's like a reason for
from every asshole I've ever met. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, this is why Harley riders have, very loud motorcycles. It's for safety, right? It's not because they're being an asshole, but it's like they're not wearing yellow vests, so like they're not actually concerned about safety, and
they're not wearing fucking helmets half the time around here.
Yeah, and so 2.5 mil is maybe kind of the example of like people are saying 4.4 they like it because of the better sound quality or the better power up. It's like you had that with 2.5 for years and you didn't do it. Why not? It's like, well, because 4.4 feels cool, and that's why. That's the real reason why.
I like the feeling of 2.5 snapping in my fingers. That's why I use it.
Nice.
4.4 is just a nice size. It can be used as a line level interconnect. It can be used for headphones. It can be used for IEMs. It's fairly durable. I will be happy if the industry moves to it. And I mean, like, it's not like we need to preserve compatibility with normal people stuff at this point, because normal people use wireless.
Now, so this is my take, is that it's 4.4 for us for audiophiles is worse than what Apple did with Bluetooth and taking away the headphone jack.
I don't think that was bad. I think that was good.
No.
It was bad. It was bad.
As someone who wants to use my headphones, my wired headphones, it was
I got to use it.
No, you want to use wired IEMs, mister.
I have a question. Do you guys think taking away the headphone jack on the iPhones, for example, would have been worth it if it led to improvements in the speaker technology?
So
of the device?
Of the device.
Oh God, no.
No. I think anybody who uses
that's interesting, because I actually think it might have, but mostly because like iPhone speakers are like some of the most common speakers you will hear people listening to.
And that's a problem. It doesn't matter if the speakers are better. It just matters that they're using them
further and say that that's something that should be in any public space a criminal offense. I think we've already done this bit, but my stance is that should be met with execution.
I agree.
Okay. I get the sentiment, and I agree.
If you're just
someone who actually lived in New York and was on the subway regularly, I hate that person.
Yeah, and making the speakers better would only make them more likely to use it and not want to get headphones.
So I have a separate.
but do you need to get headphones? I mean,
I hate Griffin's hot take so much that I'm hijacking this with my own hot take. It was a good thing that Apple removed the 3.5 millimeter connector, because that ultimately improved the sound quality that the average person hears.
Because of
the
devices that the AirPods.
Because it was one of the things that was a forcing agent for people moving to wireless headphones, which allow for things like head tracking, which allow for things like DSP, which generally on average
they're almost all of them are horrible. There are only a few of them that are competent.
Apple's wired IEM was quite good.
Okay, nobody bought the Apple IEM
except for Tile.
EarPods are not bad, but AirPods are definitely.
But those are wireless, yeah. Or well, no, they're not. Sorry,
AirPods are meaningfully better than EarPods.
Yeah.
In their ecosystem, this is true. Outside of their ecosystem, this is not true.
Do you really think that what the median earphone that people were using with their phones was not worse than the current median earphone? Do you remember the sort of shit people used to be using? They were using like JVC flatheads.
Again, I think it depends on the, like, if you're talking specifically in the Apple ecosystem, yeah, it definitely would have improved it. I think outside of the Apple ecosystem, though, it probably didn't.
Honestly, I feel like the ergonomic improvement of like that kind of shape that the EarPod like made popular essentially is enough of an upside that it makes it a more compelling option than just a flathead or something like that.
I want to go to another. I want to ask Mark a spicy question.
Please.
Oh.
Is a MacBook good enough?
Yeah, dude. So I use a M1 MacBook.
This is my guy.
Okay, is it good enough for planars?
For planars? Yes.
Low sensitivity.
You're just gonna narrow it down until the one.
A lot of planars are low sensitivity, low impedance.
Which one, motherfucker?
And I can say I've listened to Edition XS happily on my MacBook.
Okay.
Same.
E3, I think I have to have basically at max volume in order to get it to like where I'm happy with it. So it's like,
I was gonna say E3 might be a good example of one.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend a MacBook as like your main source for an E3 for sure.
The problem, and I don't know how the MacBook's thing functions like this, but the problem with those types of things generally in the past had been that it would be dependent on having a high impedance, like it would see a high impedance, and then it would kick on. But for a lot of these planars, they're low sensitivity and low impedance, meaning it wouldn't trigger the high power mode or whatever, the high I don't know, high voltage, yeah.
Right.
And then you wouldn't get the goodness out of it. And the other thing I was going to ask is a MacBook good enough to review the Bokeh closed?
So
Caldera.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah. So one note is quickly, I think my MacBook predates Apple's high impedance mode switching. I think that came on the Pros that came like 6 months after mine. So I don't think I have that, but I don't know. I wouldn't know how to check.
Also, I'd like to note the stream is not sponsored by Microsoft OneNote. We do not support Microsoft OneNote.
And then the question of, is it enough to review the Caldera? The funny thing is that, like, yeah, I think it is probably. I didn't do extensive comparison of the Caldera on my multiple sources. I just kind of use all my sources interchangeably, which is why I like a 3.5 mil. Like I just like using a headphone and then going to my laptop, going to my computer, going to my DAP, going to my Nintendo Switch, whatever it is, and just using my headphone.
Speaking of DAPs, sorry, actually, no, finish your statement. I'm stupid.
Oh, okay. No, I was just going to say that like it is funny though that became kind of the contentious point of my review of the Caldera, which is why I'm bringing it up, right? People criticize my review of it because I used a MacBook. I used a lot of sources, like I just mentioned. Like I have a JDS Element 2 as my main desktop source right now, so I also use it on that. And probably when I do like headphone comparisons, I always do it on my desktop stuff, just because I have a desk to lay stuff out on.
To be clear, I also knew that you use multiple sources. That was just
No. I know. I guess maybe I just feel like clarifying this for anyone who's curious. It is funny though that like the only reason that people brought that up, and I think you brought this up maybe last week too, is it's like when you are critical, like if they disagree with your opinion, that's when they're going to go to criticizing your source. And I happened to mention the MacBook because I was talking about it in the context of how hard to drive this headphone is. And I was saying, it's not that hard to drive. It runs fine off my MacBook. And like that was the extent of me talking about my sources. Yeah.
It's like an additional thing that you tested it on.
Right. Yeah. And they went straight to, this is why he doesn't like it, is because he used it on a MacBook. It's like, no.
Well, I mean, that's just cope, right? People will never say, oh, what were you driving it with, when you say, I loved it. But that's also because people will never assume a source interaction that's influencing your review unless your opinion differs from theirs. And they'll do this positively as well. People are like, oh, that was only tolerable because you used this or that amp. This headphone is actually terrible. It's just people bring these things up when they want to disagree with you, and they want to invent evidence for why your take is wrong.
Yeah.
Should we get into the peppers, guys?
Wait, I wanted to ask Mark, when is he reviewing the Twee retro thing from Theo?
They haven't reached out to me about that one, so I don't know. I'm not that interested in it personally.
Oh, the snow sky?
Yeah. But it has a 4.4 millimeter connector.
Wait, is that the tape thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
See, that keeps showing up on my feeds. It must be because I was yelling about how much I hate that it exists.
You yelled quite a bit.
It looks a little too cute for me to trust it, but I don't know. I'm so much prefer Android-based audio players that I kind of don't really like reviewing the other ones.
It's fair.
All right, Peppers, guys. Where are we here?
Not seeing much.
There were the earliest Pepper, I've been keeping track.
Oh, IEM/headphone talk is all cope anyways because all stereo audio on them is lo-fi.
I'll be right back.
Speaker content is far superior.
Was that the first Pepper? That's the first real hot
There's some other ones up here.
No, but they're not real hot takes. Like one of them is just Soundstage is cursed, which is
another one is a Blaine simp. Yeah, no, banned.
Yeah, those aren't real hot takes.
Yeah.
So the take is that stereo audio is lo-fi and multi-channel speaker content is superior. Okay, well, I mean, enjoy your 0.03% of all produced content, I guess.
It's a bit like saying binaural is better than stereo in headphones, and it's like I would listen to more binaural if there was more binaural.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not averse to multi-channel, but like you're talking about a very small slice of all the media that exists, and it's probably not the stuff that we're listening to.
So I'm not the kind of person who's going to specifically choose my preferred things to listen to, my preferred music based around is it binaural or is it whatever, and I could think about like, does this have a Dolby mix for it, for example. I'm not the kind of person to make my music choices based around that, but I'm curious, Mark, do you do any of this kind of stuff? Do you find that your music taste is like somewhat tied to the how it's mixed or the format or whatever?
100%. Yeah. There's like music I used to listen to that I just don't listen to anymore because it doesn't it doesn't give me the ASMR qualities that I'm looking for. Yeah, it does. The more like things like Dolby Atmos still feel gimmicky. So like that doesn't appeal to me. And maybe it's
my
just
hot
because I
take
haven't.
there. It feels gimmicky because most headphones that have it are bad.
Yeah, possibly. And also it's also possible that it's just because it's such a new thing and the people that are trying to build in it are like, it's like when you go like see a 3D movie and then they do these goofy things where something comes toward the camera. It's like, we've got this new toy, I have to play with it and exaggerate it, and like this becomes like a gimmick, right? It's like
wherein new is actually very old, but it only stays a gimmick because that's all anyone ever uses it for. It is the 3D movie problem.
Yeah. Right. But I think this was in a comment maybe earlier this week or last week. Someone was asking about Dolby Atmos, and I was wondering if like something like that could be actually like the only reason that music production gets better than it is right now.
Interesting.
It's like when if 1080p and 4K never came along, it's like, things would have never progressed in terms of how much effort people are putting into the production and the qualities of it in the audio world. Right. So like Dolby could be that just because it's got the power of, Apple behind it, making it common, but I don't know that it is there yet, but maybe it's just because I'm not paying attention.
Okay. Interesting.
I don't know how I feel about the idea that I guess a type of content or a content delivery system would have that big of an impact on the quality of the production. Yeah. I'm not saying I disagree. I just don't know if I agree either.
It all depends on how effective the marketing can be behind stuff like that.
Well, no, it's not even about that. It's more about how I feel like it might assume a little bit too much about how unified the field of mixing is, or the field of mastering is. Like,
to get to your analogy of the 4K camera versus not, if you think about what's happened with TVs, we haven't gone to let's now have basically the resolution wars are somewhat over. They're not entirely over because people still go for like 8K and whatever else, but it's at a point now where that is the gains you get there are less significant, but the gains you get in other areas like like the HDR whatever, right? OLEDs and local dimming and all this other stuff. It's changed what people care about as far as the specs that they're shopping for these products, but it also has changed how the content is created. Like it's changed. It's to the point where most things these days that are produced also have HDR. Like they're able to be shown on those displays. So there is a relationship. There is a correlation between the direction that the products go and the content that gets produced for it.
Right. Like I think no one here would deny that modern day 4K content looks better than SD content from the 90s, right? And it's like if that difference had not been something that consumers cared about and it didn't proliferate, even if 4K monitors existed, there would be nothing taking advantage of it, right? And I think this conversation actually came up in the context of high-res audio, where it's not that step, right? Most people are not going to hear anything with high-res content, but Dolby mixes are something that I think most people can hear the difference, whether or not they prefer it. Yeah. So it's like there is now this landscape that could be filled with some new production qualities if it's this thing that people end up caring enough about to buy and spend money on. But
I feel like it might actually be more akin, like spatial audio might be more akin to IMAX than 4K.
And then
because I feel like IMAX has that option. Wait, what's up?
And that it will never be adopted in widespread use.
Well, in that it kind of, to do it properly, takes considerations on input, right? Like when the content is being made and recorded originally.
Isn't the same true though for the same is
4K?
True for for the 3D stuff?
Okay.
Isn't that also?
Yeah, I mean, 3D... I think 3D would be a good analogy too. Yeah. I guess what I'm kind of getting hung up on is that most music I listen to, I couldn't really think of a way if I were handed the stems and told like, hey, make this into a compelling spatial audio mix. I don't really know how I would do that in a way that makes the song sound better and makes it a better song.
This is why you should have been there at Stephen Wilson's presentation, because he talked about exactly this. He talked about like basically the considerations that you have, because he's not just making music from scratch for Atmos. Like he is doing that
right
with his own stuff.
He's doing,
but he's also taking exactly. And he said he said a lot of things that were interesting to do with this, but basically like the considerations that you have when you're doing this kind of thing is you don't want to make it. Well, he did say that he approaches it kind of like an idiot. Like if it sounds good, he does it.
Yeah, he just does whatever sounds good.
Yeah, but at the same time, what sounds good is partially a function of what's already there in the music. And so like you just need to figure out how to, I guess, it's not necessarily about respecting that original mix and more about like,
no, it's about
respecting
what's inside it that could be made better.
Exactly. Yeah.
The issue is, and this is probably a lack of imagination on my part in some ways, is that for a lot of my music, I don't see a reality where it would be better if something was behind me or above me.
That's what I thought, but I am of so many different minds about this, because
what he played one of his own songs when he kind of displayed the effect to you, though, right?
He went through the gamut, right? Like he played stuff that is very subtle with the effect that was remixed of or upmixed of whatever. But he would also play the originals, so you could compare, right? And then it would eventually get more. He eventually got to the more sort of like deliberate, intentional, like let's go wild with this and let's see what we can do. And that the last one was his own mix, and it was by far the coolest experience. It was by far like
so like shit. There are musicians now that don't mix in spatial audio that I know if they did, it would be incredible. because their
I
stuff
tend to
is
think
already
that,
the most engaging
yeah.
shit on headphones like I've ever experienced.
I think
But
it has to
yeah,
serve the music. It has to serve function the
yeah,
same
of
way
course,
that
as any
people
mix
have
would.
yeah. And
Yeah.
it's just thinking of it like the way that people mix in stereo is like it's just like another dimension, that another tool in the toolbox for how they could mix. And so certain things I'm thinking of, like, wouldn't Yoshi Horikawa's stuff be cool on with
The thing is,
Dolby
I don't
Atmos?
know. I don't know
I think
because
it'd be
like
cool.
I'm already not a huge fan of it in headphones, actually. So maybe it would be better like
Based.
with binaural mix
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I just can't get over the fact that like whenever I think of how I would approach something for stereo or for spatial audio, I always just think like I would probably just use it for like reverb. Like I would probably just use it for spatial effects
No,
that aren't like
and
the
it is
main
true. Like
components of the song to kind of
he
help with
was
overall immersion, but not because like when you go see a band live, I mean
you
they're in
don't have the
front of you,
drums behind you.
know?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, shall we move on?
Sure.
It's the next one here.
The next one in the chronological order is Resolve should talk more about his DIY headphones.
And then the blue headphone should be renamed Ligma Blue. That's a good name for it. I'm into that.
I got some spicy takes maybe from comments in response to my videos.
Yeah,
please.
I'm interested.
Well, I think I already talked about this one a little bit with listener, but my favorite, this was really surprising me because this is a meme I didn't know existed, was somebody claimed to be able to 100% blind A/B test, hear the difference between the
directionality of cables
in different directions.
Oh yeah, he doesn't know about directional cables.
I had no idea that anyone.
Wait, are we talking headphone cables or interconnects? I don't understand the premise.
I don't know if it mattered, but yeah, this guy just claims that
because interconnects that is a thing. That was a thing that manufacturers would do, is they would put like arrows for like it goes this way. So maybe they're reinforcing that somehow.
Yeah,
I wonder if this gives because I don't know if it's a manufacturer started or a consumer started thing, but that kind of goes back to the thing you and I talked about a while back, Mark, which is where does the snake oil begin, at the manufacturers or the
right
or the consumers?
Yeah. Maybe on that note. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just to say that reminded me of the burn-in, the burn-in myth, and a lot of people, will bring up the point that the burn-in myth exists to kind of force consumers to hang on to a headphone beyond the return window. I think that's a happy accident. I don't think that's the intention.
Yeah, no.
My suspicion is that the burn-in myth, from a manufacturer's perspective, is like a legitimately useful way to deal with a queue of tickets. It's like people complaining about something. You say, "Hey, try this." It does nothing, but the brain burn-in that we know is like a real thing.
And pads.
And then they're happy. And then I dealt with that ticket. Like whether you believe that happened or not, I think it was useful.
I got you. That's a good.
I think
that's a good take.
Also, like to some degree, I think it's something that arises also from just people coping, right? Like,
people coping, yes. Do you think manufacturers are coping when they're saying this?
Some of them are.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, definitely, some of them are.
I've encountered some.
I have encountered a coping manufacturer before.
Yeah.
I also know that there's like a lot of people that work in manufacturers, like especially like support roles, where this is a thing that they're not the audiophile, right? They're just a person with a job, and like someone above them is saying, "Yeah, burn-in's a thing," and they're like, "Okay, yep, here's a solution. You apply it, it works." Okay,
yep.
Like that's kind of their experience with what burn-in is. It's like they don't believe it or disbelieve it. It's just a useful tool, and that's how it persists.
Yeah.
Should we?
I do want to say, just because we didn't really outwardly debunk it, we just kind of sarcastically memed on it. The directionality of cables is not a thing that anyone should be thinking about or caring about.
I didn't know I was supposed to.
But actually, if you consider the impedance might not be quite the same.
What if you wind it? What if you coil it really tightly? Change the.
If we consider it as a transmission line,
I mean, but that's more of a thing of like.
Oh no, I'm just
the people making the pieces of source gear should have that done correctly.
Oh yeah, no. Well, here's the thing: it will never matter at audio frequencies if you've built anything that is mildly competent. The thing is that gotcha will always exist for, again, people like Contra who will be like, I showed that theoretically something could happen here. Ergo, you should spend $1 billion on shitty snake oil.
Let's go through the spicy takes here, like a little bit more rapid fire, because we only have about 20 minutes left, and then folks can go to stage. EQ without measurements is almost random, especially mids and treble. I do think EQ should consider measurements, but it shouldn't stop there.
I don't like this take. This take is smelly.
I mean,
no, but they don't mean
I can understand it from the perspective of someone like I've tried using EQ in the past before I got into this hobby and before I got into measurements, and like it just felt like walking in the dark, or like I had no idea what I was doing. And like
having some foundation,
I can make it sound, a measurement makes it just so much easier.
Yeah,
but like I recently got my new Miata. The audio sucks in it, but I installed like a little Bluetooth adapter that has EQ in it. And just I didn't take measurements of it because I don't know how to measure my car's stereo, but played a song I'm familiar with and used the EQ. I'm like, oh, this actually sounds so much better now.
Yep. I've done exactly the same thing.
I also did exactly the same thing. And I've had people get into my car and be like, unprompted, I did not say anything or indicate anything. Yeah. Oh, it sounds good.
Nice.
Yeah, feels amazing.
EQ is the way. Just to the spirit of the point, though, I think, or to the spirit of the response to that point, the spicy take. The concern is, of course, that for people who do use measurements to EQ, they overfocus on the things that they can't actually predict are going to sound that way at their eardrum. Like, for example, information above 3 kilohertz is like, trying to EQ based on the tea leaves, unless you're dealing with major things that would otherwise disqualify the product, is very difficult to guarantee. I'm not saying it isn't
help learning EQ, but I would be very cautious about the idea that you can't EQ by ear. And I think that a lot of people should use, like, EQ should be validated by your ears. Does that seem like a fair and balanced take?
Yeah, I would say it's less so that they need measurements are necessarily the helpful tool. I think when most people start trying to do EQ without measurements and are just, flying blind, for lack of a better term, they also don't know how to identify frequencies.
Oh yeah.
Which is
EQ is super helpful for that.
If you have that tool in your toolbox, even if it's not a tangible thing you're interacting with, like, you can absolutely EQ by ear and make tangible improvements pretty quickly.
We have an unflagged hot take from Pandemonium. 4.4 should replace all headphones connectors. It should be the standard on all devices.
If you can,
I'm in favor of standardization, period. So if we could all get behind one thing, that would be great. If it's Pentacon, sure.
We have that thing.
No, but I like having multiple things that have different requirements so they can source me. Why else would I source me?
It's 3.5.
I'm joking.
U says MMCX and 2-pin are such bad connectors. Embrace IPX parentheses Estron T2, which appears to be a Danish company's IEM connector.
What do you mean, you?
You.
That's his name.
I don't like IPX.
First emperor of China.
Yeah.
IPX is kind of one that clicks in and clicks out.
Yeah,
right?
I feel like IPX has the faults of both MMCX and 2-pin that I don't like. Like with MMCX, I know people are concerned about the resist or the durability of the connection. I get annoyed because it spins and it doesn't feel stable in my ear. So IPX does that. And then 2-pin, my biggest issue is just that sometimes they'll get loose and fall out. And I feel like IPX is not as solid a connection as MMCX. So it's like, it feels like it's got the downsides of both.
Well, the IEM man has spoken. Consider yourself bullied by your savior.
Womp womp.
Got it.
Hippie Boy says, Beats improved the audio hobby. I think this is referring to the wireless thing.
We were talking about that. Yeah.
I don't know if Beats improved the audio hobby.
It depends to what extent you think Harman was okay spending all of that money on the research because Beats existed.
So there's a forcing function. I mean, yeah.
that is basically the question.
The sad thing
did Beats succeed because of an upsurge in popularity of headphones that was also what made Harman do it? Like, is Beats the signal or is Beats the shift?
No. So The sad thing about all of this is that at the end of the day, that still didn't change the fact that people were buying things where sound quality was a much lower factor than all these other things. And nothing that Sean did there necessarily changed the outcome for that for major companies making consumer products. It's just that now they also happen to sound better.
I mean, it changed things for JBL, which is a major company making
No, I know.
products.
I'm saying I don't expect this would have changed the way that the influence or the things that influence people to buy these products.
Yeah, people are buying JBL because of these things. They're buying it because it's JBL.
Yeah, exactly. And JBL knows this. So does Samsung. It's just that they happen to now also include the better sounding thing.
Better sound quality is one feature on a list.
Exactly. Yeah.
I would guess that Beats drove more investment generally in the headphone space because it kind of proved that there was a much bigger market there than had been realized before.
Particularly at the high end. I think that's the thing. The concept of high end brain sickness aside, for normal people, $150 for a headphone is high end, or was at that point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Buying headphone with tonal imbalances and EQing them out can yield subjectively preferred results over more balanced options if the former offers a unique sound that you really like. Okay, this actually gets to what Cameron and I. This gets to what Cameron and I are about to talk about in the video that's supposed to come out tomorrow, if I can get it done in time. Jesus Christ. On the Aria U, which is basically that, like, it is a headphone that we both feel we would like to EQ. Like, we both feel compelled to EQ one particular thing, but what we fix is the same thing. It's most likely going to be the thing that other people are going to want to fix, and it's also very easy to do. Or, like, at least one thing. Maybe you want to also add a bass shelf or something like that. But the point is more that you don't need to go digging in the tea leaves with this headphone to make it palatable, and that is a better headphone than one where other things would be fine or good, but you did have to go digging into the tea leaves. And that's a nuance with EQ that is a very difficult one to communicate, we realized, because people will generally come back at you with, yeah, but like you can one of two things. If you have to EQ the headphone, it's a bad headphone, and which is sure, okay. But number two, if you could technically EQ any headphone to be whatever goodness, and both of those things are true. So it's like it's difficult to really have this little nuance land.
Maybe here's how I interpret what they are saying is the headphone that came to mind immediately was the Headphone 2.
Oh yeah,
as like it's a headphone that has pre-GT. It's a headphone that has some quality about the treble that I don't know that I could recreate in the HD 600 with
it'd be
EQ.
Harder. Now, Oratory, I said this to Oratory, and he said skill issue. So I'm gonna.
it is a skill issue. Yeah. No, to be clear, it is. But I'm happy. It wouldn't be easy.
I'm happy to believe that, and yet, like, nonetheless, like, I feel like
practicality is what it is.
Yeah.
Like the tonal issues with the two, I can fix that pretty easy. Like, I 2 or 3 filters and it sounds really good to me, and it now has this quality about the treble that's I think would be hard to reproduce with EQ. So that might be what, it's like, find the headphone that does something that's hard to do with EQ and then fix the parts about it that you don't like that are easy to fix with EQ.
Easy to fix. 100%.
I'm pretty sure we did this bit like 5 months ago when we had Joel on the stream, because I remember talking about like basically this exact thing, the Aria, the HD800, etc.
Yeah.
It's what's good about those headphones. It's like, it doesn't mean we don't EQ them. It's just that there are consistency benefits.
Yeah, it's just the issue with getting it to land with an audience of people who, our audience leans skeptical, is that it's a headphone that is more expensive than $1,000.
Yeah.
Or is it $1,000?
And that's the thing. It's true. Like, would I choose that if I couldn't EQ over something that's less expensive? No.
But you can EQ.
But I can EQ, so I'm going to.
Yeah.
Like, I'm actually going to say, like, the Aria U is probably the headphone that I would buy today if I were buying a headphone at any price.
I don't know why we don't say RU.
RU makes it sound like it's a university.
I was going to say it makes it sound like a Nintendo product the way adding the U to the end of it.
RU.
Yeah.
The RU, the heck U, the sus U.
Yeah, these are all different universities.
Henri says a $15 IEM with EQs and game audio.
If you want.
My only issue with this
where
is
you
that
stop, right?
Yeah, my only issue with it is that like oftentimes the build quality on them is so poor, or like the shell ergonomics are so god awful that it's like I would spend more to have something be more ergonomic at the very
I'm not
least.
sure that I agree with the take that cheaper IEMs are less ergonomic. Actually,
They don't have to be. I'm just saying the good ones tend to be.
Well, that's the thing, though. But if you're EQing it, you don't need to pick something
That's true. That's true. You could pick.
I just wish Final E500 had better channel balance. Everything would be solved.
Yeah.
I'm going to auction my unit, which has nice channel balance. No.
You guys hopes up.
I'm just trying to think now. Are there things that I could auction off that are like rare or like?
No, Final E500 with good channel balance is.
I have a Blaris. I could auction the Blaris.
No shot.
Hado says 90% of people who say things are hard to drive simply listen too loud. I mean,
I think most people listen too loud.
Yeah, people do in general listen too loud.
Yeah. Oh my god! I was at my brother's place the other day, and we're listening to his. He has some Bayer Dynamic something, with the wrong pads. But anyway, I was actually just sharing some different tracks with him. I was like, "Oh, listen to this," and he was listening to it. And then I put the headphones on, and I went, "Holy fuck! It's so loud! It's so loud!" He's like, "What? I want to get them. I want to hear like all the things." I'm like, "Yeah, but like volume is not the thing that lets you do that." Like,
okay, so it is to a point. There is truth to that, but I mean,
we're talking like 100 dB. Like I was like, "Oh man, this is pain. I can't understand why anybody would want that."
The worst I've ever seen was the guy at Can Jam Dallas. You know which one I'm talking about, Griffin?
Oh yeah.
Right?
No, I don't, but I've heard the story.
Yeah, so he put on, what was it? Like it wasn't an Aperio, was it? No, that Cameron was worried about the Aperio later when he went to the booth. He put on something, and it was so loud that it was annoying from the other side of the booth. Like it was too loud in free air.
Wow.
Yeah,
that guy was horrifying.
No.
Yeah, I guess my Can Jam experience was the Utopia, the newer Utopia. The person listening to the same headphone, the Utopia, listening to the same headphone next to me, I couldn't evaluate the headphone because I was just hearing what they were hearing, and it was insane. It's like,
honestly, this is my unironic take. I think we should bounce people for that. Like, I think that's something where both from a perspective of the other customers and also from a perspective of not basically enabling self-harm. We should stop that.
Well,
I mean, if someone just sat down and pulled out a pocket knife and started whittling on their thumb, you'd be like, what the fuck? Stop that.
Well, to be clear, you wouldn't.
Yes,
well, he would be the one doing that.
He would give them the knife. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He would take the knife and then do that to them. HD800S is the best headphone in the world. Yep, spicy take. Adrian says my main spicy take is thoughts on headphone versus IEM bass that we talked about.
Adrian, for some reason, believes that IEMs have better bass than headphones, and I don't know why he believes this.
I mean, quantity is the obvious.
That's
thing
true.
there.
Like, is it not? I mean, we're talking like you don't.
So he needs to listen to the U Green headphone, is what you're saying.
He needs to listen to these.
I mean,
Adrian,
he might
if
like
you're going
it.
to Can Jam, New York, listen to these. These have bass. These have, yeah.
Oh, spoilers.
I'm ignoring the two others from KZO because those are just baiting me.
Yeah.
Can I add a spicy take to what we were talking about just a bit ago about the loud music?
Please.
Sorry, can't remember what the take was initially. It's like if it's hard to drive, it's because you're listening too loud. Here's another kind of related. It's like if you're listening too loud, it's because your music sucks.
Good take.
Oh, that's a good take. I like that.
I'm saying this as experience for myself. Is I used to listen to headphones much louder than I do, and it was because of also kind of what I talked about earlier. Like I don't listen to a lot of the music I used to listen to because it doesn't sound that good. And I think what I was trying to do was get those ASMR qualities out of music that wasn't recorded that well. And the way I did it was just blasting it. And now I found better recorded music. Like, oh, I can just listen at 70 dB. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. On the note of the terrifying guy at Dallas, Juanita, who was there, said the Haifa Man rep yelled at him. He was blasting music on the Susvara. Kind of scary. I heard the music through the closed backs I was listening to.
Through the closed
Was it Adam?
backs?
I can't remember.
Jesus.
Adrian says detail is how big the air peak is. I disagree with this. I can see why why some folks get there, but I do not think this is true.
Adrian, I think just realized that he really likes the air peak of the dusk.
Raw dog and dusk.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah, raw dogging it.
Which is what I do as well.
I cannot.
Dusk.
So good. So good.
Default DSP, man. Default DSP.
I mean, it is good. Don't get me wrong. I like the DSP.
Better.
Yeah.
I just like the 3.5.
But I recommended Adrian the 64 audio stuff, which I already know he's a fan of. Like I already know he likes Trio and U6T and
U6T. Hell yeah.
No, he already likes those. So I think
he's already bought.
I think that's where he's coming from.
Rebought every 64 audio IM at least 3 times.
I am so curious what people are going to think of this unnamed IM that we can't talk about.
Wait, which IM is it? Text it to me.
Just go to the.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna.
Is it wooden?
No.
Could you imagine?
Wood sounds good.
So true.
It's it would sound better if it was.
Harchu says most IM releases are irrelevant if you could fully consider everything that already exists. I think that if I could fully consider everything that already exists, I would be too busy like marveling at the wonder of creation.
Well, see, the thing is, though, we've already established on stage that at most all we can say is that something exists.
Well,
this is true.
So we've already considered everything that exists.
No, but like,
isn't
the way we review things typically with respect to the things that already exist? Like, I don't know about you guys, but I try to as best as I can anyway review things within the context of the marketplace of products that exist, because that's how you would judge value for a consumer, right? It's like, how does this compare to other products?
But does that include everything that already exists?
Well, no, but at least when it comes to things like IEMs, which is what they mentioned, like the churn of things being discontinued and new products coming out is so quick that there aren't a lot of IEMs that stay around long enough for this to be an issue.
Actually made me not care as much about IEM releases, even if they are potentially competent or good. It's just like, what is there to say about this?
Something's going to be better. Basically, every single IEM review I've published in the last year has ended with, yeah, it's okay, but you could probably wait like a few months and get something better. And it's been proven true every single time.
Moore's Law with IEMs.
Yeah, exactly.
It kind of reminds me too of like maybe analogy is like in video games. It's like, why do they keep making video games? Why are people like worried about spending $70 for a video game when there's just an infinite supply of free video games that you've never played?
Yeah.
Well, because the other ones have better production value.
Worried about? Oh, well, I mean, like the reason I do that is because a game comes out and I'm like, game looks good. I'm probably going to play more than 70 hours of this. $1 an hour is a good trade.
What is the preference curve for video game?
Well, like price versus preference, we already know what the.
You were not supposed to answer this question.
Well, no, I mean it's like the whole graph would get broken because Fortnite technically costs $0, and that game has like an incredibly large number of hours played.
Okay. Mark's point does remind me of one of my favorite stand-up routines, which I think is it's Hannibal Buress. He says, like, man, there are so many movies out there, and like I really like movies, and I would like to watch them all. But I can't because they keep making new movies. So I'll never be able to catch up. So I think we should just stop making movies for a year, something like that, just so everyone can catch up. I actually don't remember if it was Hannibal Buress or someone else.
So unironically relatable. We should stop making IEMs for a year. Is that what?
Yeah, I would absolutely be behind this. Stop making IEMs for a year.
Let moratorium.
We can evaluate everything up to this point and then conclude what we kind of already know, which is that there's maybe like 1 or 2 gems out there that people don't know about, but.
Yeah.
All right. We need not much more than that.
We do need to end the stream, but we'll do one more spicy take on stream, and then the rest will move to stage. If that
do
works.
We have
for
any
folks.
good spicy takes?
I
got one from Rando.
Okay.
Lightweight audiophile on-ears are an untapped market, and costs should have competitors.
Is this a Douglas alt?
Douglas alt detected.
Yeah.
Did y'all see the III? They just released a new collab that's like kind of like a cost alternative.
Does it suck as bad as all the other IIs did?
Well, I don't think it's out yet. It looks really cool though. It's orange.
It's orange?
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen it.
Link it.
I don't know. Go to their website.
Oh, whoa, that's very odd looking.
It's cool.
Oh, I did see this. It's cute.
Looks quite retro.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the spicy take. Can you EQ $100 to sound exactly like $5,000?
Yes,
and
you can make it sound better.
Well, yeah, I'm curious what Mark's take is on this.
Oh.
Can you EQ a product that is $100 to sound exactly like a product that is in the $5,000 price range?
I mean, I think it's going to be hard. I think it's going to be hard just because of treble peaks, your own anatomy, how it's going to, like, even with headphones, it's like, how much position dependent a response is, and like you can EQ and fix it maybe in exactly the right position, but maybe as soon as it moves a millimeter, those interactions might be different from this headphone versus the $5,000 headphone you're thinking about. So it might not be. I don't know. I don't do it myself. I'll just say that. Like, I don't spend time trying to do it myself.
My answer to this is: can you? Yes. Will you? No.
Can you theoretically? Yes. Can you practically? I don't really think you can.
Yeah,
making two things sound exactly the same is it's something mathematically that is possible, but it's quite. I would say that you could EQ a $100 IEM to beat a $5K IEM. Like that would be a much easier. Yes.
But that is actually kind of trivial, depending on which IEMs you choose.
Yeah, because there's a lot of terrible 5K IEMs.
Yeah.
But like active EQ might be a place where that's possible, or something that's like AirPods that's responding to the conditions changing.
Something like that, like with what Final Audio is trying to do, or some situation like that. Yeah. Okay. We need to end the stream, but for folks who still want to chat with the other folks here, we will be opening up a stage.
I'll come by for a while. I got to go buy chicken supplies though.
Important. I also have to go, but not to buy chicken supplies.
I thought you were going to say that you also had to go buy chicken supplies.
No, I'm selling chicken supplies.
Okay. Oh, nice. Okay. I want to give a big thank you to Mark Ryan for stopping by and hanging out this Saturday. Go check out his channel. If you just search Mr. Super, it will show up.
Does it?
It's in the description. Just click the link in the description and click subscribe.
Yeah.
Yes, he's one of our favorite reviewers, even though he mostly reviews bad headphones.
Well, IEMs.
That's what I said.
Yeah. Blaine, do you want to take us out?
Right. So, as always, we are brought to you by Headphones.com. This channel employs a quite meaningfully sized staff, including people beyond even who's on here right now. We have folks like Douglas, folks like Precog in some cases, folks like Cameron, and frankly, you don't make that much money on YouTube these days, particularly if you're not doing a bunch of affiliate links and sponsorships, which we don't. So this is brought to you by Headphones.com, and it is funded by our storefront. Headphones.com is your number one place to learn about, and yes, please buy audio equipment, headphones, DACs, amps, IEMs if you must, and also speakers, something which our name doesn't imply. Pretty much everything on our site is covered by our 365-day return policy. Anything that isn't will be marked as final sale or otherwise clearly delineated, but for the things that are in that return policy, you have a full year from your date of purchase to return, so you know that you will be getting something you're happy with in the end. Please do buy things there because, as said, this channel is in no way financially sustainable. It is an outgrowth of the store, and the store is very kindly providing a lot of money for surprisingly unbiased content for you guys. So,
surprisingly, the main thing is, instead of going to Amazon to buy a thing, we would request humbly that folks consider headphones.com to buy the same thing, because
we have the same upsides. We ship really quickly, but we have better upsides in that we have a longer return policy and a better customer service division.
Yeah.
And you're funding content like this.
Exactly. Yeah.
And as Griffin rightly noted in the chat, anyone who would like to see the after show should join us in our community on Discord, which is discord.gg/headphones. And while this isn't directly related to this stream, we take many of the topics that we talk about in streams from a thread on forum.headphones.com, which is our other community that we would like you to join and participate in.
The after show gets wild. You haven't seen Blaine yet until you've gotten on. I have no idea.
That's when Blaine breaks out the cat ears.
Yeah, it's Blaine. It's Blaine unleashed. All right, and with that, we'll see you guys in the next stream. So thank you for watching.
Bye, everyone. See you on Discord.